The concept of mental food is simple. Just as the food we eat shapes our body, the information and stimuli we consume with our senses shapes our psyche, our emotions, and our overall well-being. There is an ancient proverb, "The body becomes what the foods are, as the spirit becomes what the thoughts are." The Buddha taught that feeding the mind with greed, hatred, and delusion strengthens those things, and that practicing mindfulness allows us to guard the gates of the senses and curate a more pure experience. Epictetus taught that the mind should be guarded like a fortress against external events to maintain inner peace and freedom. According to Rosicrucian philosophy, pure thoughts build finer vehicles. In James Allen's As a Man Thinketh, the mind is compared to a garden that must be cultivated. By treating thoughts as seeds, individuals choose to plant positive, constructive ideas or allow weeds of negative thought to grow. This shapes the individual's character and determines their outcomes in life. GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, is a computing principle that simply expresses how the quality of the output is directly determined by the quality of the input. You don't want to input garbage code into your computer, and you certainly don't want to input garbage into your mind. And social media, for the most part, along with all of mass media, is garbage. Studies show that habitual scrolling on social media causes desensitization, reduced focus, dopamine addiction, compulsion, anxiety, and depression. Exposure to political media, regardless of political affiliation, increases feelings of despair, hopelessness, and paranoia. And this psychology is very well known. When people are kept in this voluntary state of hysteria, they are easily herded in any direction the shepherd desires. Techniques called micro-targeting and hyper-nudging are used against social media consumers to foster conflicts and reactive behaviors, and to create echo chambers that temper worldviews. This manipulates the emotions of all social media consumers on a subconscious level, keeping them from asking deeper questions. State-sponsored social media manipulation is officially being used in over 60 countries to condition the minds of the masses. Propaganda is very popular with governments because everyone is easily influenced by it. G.I. Gurdjieff calls these sensory and psychological inputs from the external world impressions, and taught that impressions are the highest and most important food, requiring conscious awareness to be properly assimilated, and warned that without a well-practiced sense of self-awareness, the acquired personality, what some call the ego, will mismanage the impressions, causing people to be hypnotized and poisoned by them. To override this, one must interpose consciousness the moment the impression is received. As an impression arrives, pause and observe it objectively, and observe how your thoughts, emotions, and body react to it. Use reflection to properly address the impression, and if needed, redirect it to the intellectual center for analysis. To get really good at this, you could sit comfortably every evening before bed and reconstruct your entire day, working backwards, scene by scene. For many, this requires consistent effort, but restricting yourself from violent media and feeding yourself more positive stimuli has the benefits of reduced ego-driven reactions, less stress, more peace, and spiritual evolution. Studies on media deprivation and mental health show that even taking a break for 1 or 2 weeks significantly reduces anxiety, depression, loneliness, and insomnia. Studies have shown that listening to non-lyrical classical music reduces stress and depression while enhancing cognition and emotional processing. It improves sleep quality, memory, and mobility in older adults. Be careful what you eat. As Nietzsche famously said, "If thou gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee." Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diamond Report Live. We have a special presentation tonight. It's actually pretty much a normal presentation, just on a different night. So it is 9:05 p.m. on Tuesday night, Tuesday night, February 17th, 2026. And this is your host, Doug Diamond. Hope you guys are doing well. I've had a good week so far, and last week was okay as well. And just wanted to try and fit in a Diamond Report Live this week. I had to do some traveling over the weekend, starting Sunday. We were gone all day, Sunday and Monday, so there was just no way to do the live show, but I wanted to squeeze one in tonight because it is breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. That is what this show is all about. So hi and welcome, and let's take a look at the news. We've got pretty much a standard type of setup tonight as far as the normal show goes, and thought we'd start with Hal's website, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, just some of the headlines he's got on his website. And I think if you want to investigate any of these things, the best way to do that would be to just log in on his website. I think that's how you access all of the various articles on the site now, but just a few of the most recent headlines. Just sort of, pick one or two here to read through. Apparently there were some Iran and U.S. talks that have ended. From what I gather on that, it wasn't all negative, so that's somewhat encouraging, but, we also know what happens when you have, an end result of peace and safety happening. So I don't know what to think on that quite yet, but they've been trying to have talks apparently, and he also has another headline here that I hadn't really seen anywhere else, but it says, found dead, the Netanyahu chief of staff. So Bibi's chief of staff was found dead. It's pretty interesting, huh? And then he's got other stories here on what's going on in the Middle East. Tends to talk a lot about that, and of course the whole deal with whatever's going on in Israel and Iran, and then also the standard stuff between Ukraine and Russia and NATO and the rest of the world. So he does have some good reporting on all of that. That is HalTurnerRadioShow.com and his nightly radio show that he does as well, which is probably on not too long after this show gets started. Anyway, it is, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, and let's keep moving here. I won't spend a lot of time on his site just because, for the most part, you have to be logged in on his site really to access the information, but he does do really good breaking news on there. All right, needtoknow.news. Got a few articles from that site. mRNA injections stay in the body for years. Yeah, that's if the body lives for years. Bill Gates / Epstein pandemic planning network exposed. Researcher Nicholas Holscher reviews a COVID VAXX injury case that demonstrates that in some individuals, vaccine-derived genetic sequences and spike protein can persist for years after mRNA VAXXing, contradicting earlier false claims that the material would degrade rapidly. I'm not sure who actually believed any of that, but I guess someone somewhere must have, because they kept repeating it over and over again, and that it didn't change your DNA. But that turned out to be false too, didn't it? He summarized the association between Gates and Epstein that focused on promoting and funding vaccines with the timeline beginning in 2011. So anyway, there's some embedded tweets here, and let's see here, Sayer G and some other things being said here. Epstein, Bill Gates, J.P. Morgan vaccine pandemic profiteering complex warrants federal investigation, he says. 2011 to 17, emails and texts discuss vaccine funding structures and pandemic simulations. 2019, Event 201 simulates a global coronavirus pandemic weeks before COVID-19 emerges. We all know about that one, don't we? And then, of course, 2019 was the year that Epstein supposedly was found dead. We've got a little bit more information on that as well as we proceed through the night. But anyway, here's one of the emails that's being talked about here, I guess. It goes on here. This is the email exchange here between Bill Gates and Epstein and others. It says, why was software engineer Bill Gates collaborating with convicted child trafficker on pandemic simulations? That would be because of all the money involved. Sayer G, he's the one from GreenMed Info, conducted extensive research and uncovered what appears to be a possible Gates-Epstein-JP Morgan network for pandemic and vaccine profiteering. Then here's a link to Sayer G's Substack. Then here's the timeline: 2011, 2013, 2015, and so on. Quite a bit of info, and this is originally from a website called thefocalpoints.com. So pretty interesting, huh? There's just more and more things that these Epstein files seem to be revealing connections between. How about this one? Epstein revealed Fort Knox is empty. Secretary of State Rubio announces downfall of U.S. dollar. During the 2008 banking collapse, Epstein was dishing financial advice to the heads of Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan, both on Bush's U.S. Treasury Secretary team from his jail cell following his conviction of a sex crime. These are the people who are running our government, Trump announced. Project Vault to secure critical minerals while China is pushing the yuan as a reserve currency. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that other countries are trading in other currencies and the U.S. dollar is losing its reserve status along with the U.S. government's power to economically sanction other countries. Looking to see what it says here about Fort Knox. If there's any info. I don't see any other info on that, but it could be in these videos here. There's 2 videos embedded here. A redacted video clip that mentions it. Epstein files just detonated. New docs hint that Epstein discussed Fort Knox years ago. So, you probably, I'm sure, remember that there was a lot of discussion about we're going to take a look at Fort Knox and audit the gold that's in Fort Knox, supposedly, if there is any, back when Doge was doing their thing when Trump first got in. And that was all dropped like a hot rock, wasn't it? Probably because they found out that it's empty. My guess is if Epstein was revealing here that it's actually empty, then it probably actually is. Just a wild guess. All right, and then another one from needtoknow.news. Amazon's Ring and Google's Nest unwittingly reveal the severity of the U.S. surveillance state. You guys have a Google Nest based thermostat in your house? You likely do. On Sunday, February 8th, Super Bowl Sunday, Amazon ran a commercial for its Ring camera security system that exploited people's love of dogs to introduce them to ignore the consequences of what Amazon was touting. It seems that trick did not work. Amazon's Ring camera commercial highlighted its search party, quote-unquote, search party feature and uploaded a photo of a lost dog that activated multiple other Amazon Ring cameras in the neighborhood that appeared to use AI programs to scan all dogs and identify the one that was lost. It showed how invasive the technology can be. Many people were quite shocked to learn that what they thought was merely their own personal security system now has the ability to link with countless other Ring cameras to form a neighborhood-wide or city-wide or statewide surveillance dragnet. The backlash became so severe that just days later, Amazon, seeking to assuage public anger, announced the termination of a partnership between Ring and Flock. Flock is Flock Safety, a police surveillance tech company. While Flock is unrelated to Search Party, public backlash made it impossible, at least for now, for Amazon to send Ring's user data to a police surveillance firm. And yes, more on that. We have another article on that pulled up as well. The whole thing between Ring and Flock Safety. Here is the Super Bowl commercial. If you missed it, like I didn't watch the Super Bowl, so I did not see this. It's all couched in, finding this lost doggy, which of course is a good thing, but not when we're all being surveilled. And this is what the youngsters out there would call a self-own. That would be because Amazon's trying to get people to sign on to this Ring system, and they show what could happen with this doggy commercial, with the search party, and they self-owned themselves. So now they've had to supposedly disconnect from some of these things as far as their connection, at least, with Flock. So it's definitely worth checking into, and we've got more information. I think it's a Leo Hohmann Substack post on this whole thing between Amazon and Flock. So we'll look at that a little bit more later. All right, and then this one from needtoknow.news. J. Edward Griffin, who is the person who heads up this website, weighs in on the growing number of states proposing the elimination of property taxes. There's an increasing number of states that are proposing to phase out property taxes. Property rights are human rights. It's important to recognize that the right to own property is a human right. It's also important to know that there are two types of property: essential and convenience. Essential property consists of those things that are essential for survival, such as food, water, clothing, shelter, tools, defensive weapons, and assets for future survival in old age or in hard times, such as life savings, and investments. The use of coercion and force, including lethal force, to defend essential rights is justified as the right to defend one's life and liberty. All other types of property are considered as convenience property. The possession of convenience property is also a human right, but the legal penalty for violating that right is less severe than for essential property and does not include the death penalty. The right to legally acquire and personally possess property is not only a human right, but the most important one of all, because no other rights are possible without it. Without ownership of essential property in order to survive, we must depend on others who have or control such property. And we must obey their commands or die. This, of course, is the definition of slavery. If human rights exist at all, essential property is among them, and taxation of this right is no less absurd than taxing freedom of speech or religion. So that is a little couple paragraphs here from J. Edward Griffin. Multiple states are considering proposals to limit and ultimately abolish property taxes, reflecting greater support for property rights among landowners and, at least in rhetoric, state leaders. The Associated Press recently reported on the increasing number of state proposals to phase out property taxes. So some of them that are mentioned here: North Dakota, Georgia, Florida, Texas, several people and states that are mentioned in this little blurb here, this article. Additionally, as we reported in our December 5th, 2025 Insider Report, Wyoming legislators are advancing several measures to reduce or eliminate property tax. Ohio and Oklahoma may hold ballot measures this year to eliminate property taxes. It says a ballot measure on a state constitution amendment to prohibit state property taxes in Tennessee has already been confirmed in November, but it would not affect local property taxes. We have really high property taxes where I live, very high. But we do not have income tax in the state of Tennessee. So that's a plus. But we have high property taxes that kind of, unfortunately, balances it out. And while we don't have a state income tax, there are taxes on businesses. So if you own a business, you still get taxed. So it's not as rosy as one might believe that it is as far as Tennessee goes. But in general, there are some good things that are happening here where I am, and then other states have it figured out a little better, I think. Florida, perhaps, may be one of those. So anyway, that one is a needtoknow.news article. And then, let's see, we've got 3 here from the Liberty Beacon. New one from Nick Shirley, who exposed all of the Somali fraud in Minnesota. Well, this is a new one. Citizen journalist Nick Shirley pulls back the curtain on California voter fraud. I really hope this kid has some good security around him, if you know what I mean. It says the independent journalist who exposed massive amounts of social service fraud in Minnesota is now calling out alleged voter fraud in California with the release of a new video of his investigation there. Nick Shirley has released his latest video, which chronicles voting irregularities in the Golden State, where he says he uncovered inaccurate voter rolls, dead people casting votes, lax voter ID requirements, and month-long election processes that cast doubt on election integrity. Yeah, they don't have election day in California. They have election season. So, You enter election season and you just vote and vote and vote again until they say that the voting is closed, which could be weeks or months from the actual start of the voting process. Nick Shirley says, California is the breeding ground for voter fraud in America. As millions of people vote with no ID, month-long election processes, inaccurate voter rolls, dead people caught voting, even a dog successfully registered to vote, and voter verification is all based on your signature, not who you actually are. It says, in this video, I go to locations from California's public voter rolls from the Secretary of State, and not a single location could verify the voter rolls. I think they would probably call that racist, wouldn't they? Irregularities in voter numbers per location, 30-plus people registered to one mail store, voters inaccurately aged at 125 years old. Sounds about right. Without any voter ID and negligence from the state government to update their voter rolls, California's one-party state has created a complex system where fraud is inevitable in their voting process. So this is another Nick Shirley production thing here that is probably worth a watch. I have not actually seen it, but it's pretty short. It looks like it's about 23 minutes long. Once again, Nick is bringing the news to people that the mainstream media just totally ignores. So way to go, Nick. And again, I hope he has some good security. He's going to need it, unfortunately. Albany law student sues school over racial and political discrimination. I pulled this one up not because it's new information really, but we know that this reverse racism stuff is happening all the time. It's getting worse. But I'm wondering if this may end up being the beginning of what you could say a backlash on this type of thing. So again, Albany law student sues a school over racial and political discrimination. Professor Farley intentionally deactivated the classroom's audio recording system and abandoned course instruction, launching instead into a hostile political and racial monologue directed at white conservative students. That is from a student named Roland Rupp. Roland Rupp. A student at Albany Law School of Union University has created his own clinical opportunity by suing the school for racial and political discrimination. At issue is the allegedly biased and hostile lectures of Professor Anthony Farley. Rupp is suing under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other civil rights laws. I think the Democrats made the mistake of ever including whites in that. They should have left that out, and then none of this would be questioned when it came time to do that many years later. In his lawsuit, Rupp alleges that Farley intentionally deactivated the classroom's audio recording system and abandoned course instruction, launching instead into a hostile political and racial monologue directed at white conservative students. That included claims that the founding fathers were, quote, worse than Hitler, and that conservatives, quote, hate everyone. Blacks, women, gays, end quote. And that they aim to conserve slavery. So yes, these crazy, they're not all bad, but these crazy professors at some of these colleges actually do believe that. Rupp alleges that Farley also singled him out over his personal appearance as an example of what white conservatives look like, referring to them as, quote, Daniel Boone. The complaint also said that Farley harassed him on Facebook for his Daniel Boone clothing and a Remember the Alamo hat, and generally having an incel, INCEL, / MAGA look. But it's apparently not racist when people do that against white people. And the worst people that are doing it, though, are white liberals doing it against other white people. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that just because it is kind of interesting to me, and it'll be also interesting to see if there are other calls for people to not do this reverse racism in schools and other places. So we'll see. Yeah, maybe the beginning, we hope, of fairness coming back. Who knows? Senator Rand Paul unveils bill to end nationwide liability protections for Big Pharma. According to Rand Paul, the bill would make pharmaceutical companies more accountable by allowing people to sue them if they believe that they have been injured by VAXXs. Senator Paul introduced legislation this week that would eliminate federal liability protections for vaccine manufacturers, which is a legal shield that has been in place for 4 decades. The bill, co-sponsored by Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, was referred to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. If passed, the bill will make changes to the federal law to abolish the liability shield provided to VAXX manufacturers under the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which is what Reagan signed, unfortunately, which largely protects vaccine manufacturers from product liability lawsuits and requires most injury claims to be directed to a federal compensation program, which is mostly all hidden, by the way. They don't let people know about that. According to Rand Paul, the bill would make pharmaceutical companies more accountable by allowing people to sue them if they believe that they have been injured. Vaccine safety monitoring data maintained by the CDC, Center for Disease Creation, as I say, shows that there have been millions of adverse events reported and filed. Yeah, but that's only a very, very small percentage of what's actually happening. In the past, a study done in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that the nation's main vaccine adverse event reporting system captures fewer than 1% of adverse events. Yeah, so it's very, very little. 1% may even be a high number. I don't know. So that is a Liberty Beacon article. I've got 3 here from technocracy.news. So let's look at those real quick. Pentagon threatens to blacklist Anthropic over guardrails on military use. Imagine that. Because Anthropic has community standards on how the military uses its software, the defense community is slinging mud and threatens to cut them off. Why? Because Anthropic says no use for domestic surveillance, no design or use of weapons or facilitating violence or malicious cyber operations. Elon Musk, who has no scruples about how XAI is used by the military, piled on insults, calling the company anti-human, evil, and racist. The Pentagon is reportedly about to cut ties with Anthropic, the makers of Claude, which is already embedded in classified systems. The company insists on implementing guardrails over how the U.S. military can use Claude, specifically when it comes to mass surveillance and autonomous weapons, after it was used in the Maduro raid without their knowledge. The Pentagon is now calling Claude a threat to national security. Some are accusing the overwhelmingly left-leaning company of trying to undermine the Trump administration, while Elon Musk says that Claude hates whites, Asians, heterosexuals, and men. So if you didn't know, Claude is AI. An AI. It's one of many. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is reportedly close to cutting ties with Anthropic and designating the firm a supply chain risk, a penalty typically reserved for foreign adversaries, a senior Pentagon official told Axios. Anthropic's flagship model, Claude, is already embedded in the military's classified systems. However, the company's CEO has been pushing for abstract guardrails over ethical concerns for what the government sees as urgent national security needs. Anthropic's AI. It will be an enormous pain in the arse to disentangle, a senior official told Axios. We are going to make sure that they pay a price for forcing our hand. So anyway, the AI wars continue. Matt Schumer, something big is happening with AI. Most writers talk about the AI was around 6 months ago, and they judge it accordingly. With the capability of AI doubling every 4 to 5 months, you should immediately see the problem. It's almost impossible to keep up. Schumer has been a world-class coder for years and now finds himself out of hands-on coding forever. With Anthropic's just released Opus, 4.6, I had to test it for myself, and I concur that something big is happening. So this is yet another AI by Anthropic. I graduated from coding over 25 years ago, but writing books and research papers has a lot in common. If code in poetry, quote unquote, then so is prose. You strive to put every word in its proper place to convey visions and concepts in your head. Sentence structure, grammar, and punctuation matters. So, when signed for a pro account for Claude to see what Matt is talking about, I was rather blown away. After about an hour of prompting Opus 4.6, it got wind of technocracy and started connecting the dots from 1932 at Columbia to the mad dash to establish technocracy today. I have tested other models in this same way, and none of them came as close as Opus 4.6. In fact, they were all dismal. Per Schumer's experience, we need to pay attention to the present and the future. The doubling effect of AI's abilities every 4 to 5 months is sneaking up on us. His article is beyond viral, with over 83 million views in the last 5 days. So here is a video. It's embedded here. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that just because, again, the AI wars continue. How fast it's actually moving. Let me make the pace of improvement concrete, because I think this is the part that's the hardest to believe if you're not watching it closely. In 2022, AI couldn't do basic arithmetic reliably. It would confidently tell you that 7 times 8 equals 54. By 2023, it could pass the bar exam. By 2024, it could write working software and explain graduate-level science. By 24. By late 2025, some of the best engineers in the world said they had handed over most of their coding work to AI. On February 5th, this month, new models arrived that made everything before them feel like a different era. If you haven't tried AI in the last few months, what exists today would be unrecognizable to you. So that's where we're at. And it just keeps doubling in complexity and usefulness. So, I don't know. That one is technocracy.news, and then one more from this same site. To serve man, the rapid rise of AI compute and AI data centers. This is just a little blurb here because the full article is behind the paywall. However, you can listen to the whole thing by clicking this play button here. Institutional AI is not an add-on to our existing order. It is the order. When you follow the hardware, the data flows, and the political incentives, a simple conclusion emerges. Institutional AI, corporate plus state, is structurally about governing populations and markets. That's where most of the compute and data gravity now resides. Yes, it's not in making memes and pictures. So I wanted to mention that one as well. So that is technocracy.news. Now I found this one. I thought this was pretty interesting as well. You remember the old Super Bowl, and Bad Bunny was the concert at the halftime show. Bad Bunny's big lie was just exposed. So it's come out that because he sang in Spanish, all of the lyrics pretty much that he was singing, many of them, were just horrendous. And he could never have sung those lyrics in English. And so now there are questions on, so far as I know, nothing has happened, but there are questions on, will the NFL be held responsible, be held liable by the FCC as far as punishing someone, Bad Bunny or the record label or just NFL in general, that these lyrics that were sung by him in Spanish, because most people don't speak Spanish, there was no way to know what he was saying. So that's been a recent argument. Now, this is something else yet, though. It says, after the Bad Bunny smutty Spanish Super Bowl halftime show, the left-wing bots were out in full force, calling it a massive success, claiming it was the most popular Super Bowl halftime show of all time, even more popular than Dr. Dre, Eminem, and Snoop Dogg. These claims were so preposterous that it was giving 2020's 81 million election vibes all over again. And just like that fiasco, nobody was buying this nonsense either, especially when the crowd reacted like this. So I'll play this. You can't hear the music, but you can see here that really almost nobody is enjoying themselves. This is the actual crowd at the Super Bowl. It says someone recorded the crowd during Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show, and of the 70,000 people in attendance, only a handful can be seen actually enjoying the music, while the rest are trying to figure out what they just watched. Imagine paying $6,000 for this. Well, everyone who thought this rabbit smelled fishy was right, because as it turns out, this was actually one of the worst Super Bowl halftime performances of all time. Now, this is what Benny Johnson, podcaster, has put out. Panic preliminary ratings numbers show viewership for Bad Bunny halftime performance tanked 39% from last year. Only 26.5 million households watched, quote unquote, watched. 48.6 million tuned into the game, meaning nearly half of Americans turned off the TV at halftime show. Total cultural victory, he says. And then it's got the U.S. flag. So anyways, that is yet another little twist here to the whole halftime Super Bowl nonsense that happened just a few weeks ago. Just wanted to mention that, and the deal with the lyrics, I guess, is still out there. I don't know if anything will come of it. Most likely it won't, because it's the NFL we're talking about. But I thought that was pretty interesting that he was singing all these really terrible lyrics in Spanish, and I guess it was okay because he was singing in Spanish, and no one could understand him. All right, Headline USA articles, and a few of them. Let's see here. From Israel, Senator Lady G, as they call him, Lady Lindsey Graham, pushes for war on Iran while admitting U.S. troops could be hit. South Carolina Senator also said that the U.S. decision on potential military action against Iran is, quote, weeks away, not months. Now, this article is dated today. Weeks away, not months, according to Lady G here. From Israel on Monday, Graham pushed for a U.S. war against Iran, like he always does, while acknowledging that U.S. soldiers in the region could get hit by Iranian counterattacks, a risk he said was worth it. Clearly, he has no children or no one else that he knows over there in harm's way, I guess. Or maybe he does and doesn't care. Could our soldiers be hit in the region? Absolutely they could. Can Iran respond if we have an all-out attack? Absolutely they can. Graham said during a press briefing at the hotel in Tel Aviv. South Carolina Senator also said that the U.S. decision on potential military action against Iran is weeks away, not months, and described Israel as the place where the wars of the future are being planned. How about that? The wars are being planned in Israel as we speak. Other wars. All signs indicate that if the U.S. bombs Iran, Tehran will not hold back in its response or provide the U.S. with a warning ahead of time, as it did before launching the retaliatory missile strikes on U.S.'s Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar following the U.S. airstrikes on its nuclear facilities. Many U.S. bases and warships are in range of Iranian missiles, leaving open the possibility of thousands of U.S. casualties if Iran goes all out with its response. Yeah, well, anyway, Lady G is very excited about the prospect of war, isn't he? Always has been. UN features white child image in anti-child bride campaign. Alongside the post, the UN used an image of a young white girl in a wedding dress with a caption that says, quote, "A child should never be in a marriage," end quote. I think they've got the skin color wrong, don't you? A United Nations social media campaign against child marriage sparked criticism after it featured an image of a blonde white bride, rather than a child from the countries where child marriage is most common. Every 3 seconds a girl is married somewhere in the world. Child marriage is a human rights violation that denies girls the chance to reach their full potential. Except especially Muslim countries. Alongside the post, the UN used an image of a young white girl in a wedding dress with the caption, "A child should never be in a marriage." Here it is here. So, and then the reader added context here I thought was pretty interesting. It says the image in this post is deliberately misleading. Even their own website shows that the vast majority of child marriages happen in countries that are predominantly dark-skinned. Yes, as in Muslim. The use of a white woman with blonde hair is a dishonest representation of the problem. Critics quickly pointed out that child marriage disproportionately affects populations in Africa, Southeast Asia, and other regions where the majority of people are black or brown. And this talks about the community note here that I just read. The use of a white woman with blonde hair is a dishonest representation of the problem. Headline USA reviewed UN statistics showing the percentage of girls under 15 married in various countries, broken down from highest to lowest. Here we go. Chad, Niger, Mali, Guinea, Nigeria. Those are all the highest rated ones here. Ethiopia, Mozambique. So everywhere from 30% down to 14%. Cameroon at 13%. And then countries with under 10% of girls under 15 include Gambia, Liberia, Congo, Gabon, Togo, Zambia, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Namibia. So these are all African countries primarily. Anyway, pretty wild. And then here's what someone corrected it to. A child should never be in a marriage. And then they've done the hijab with a dark skin. So there you go. And then here's another one. I fixed it for you. So anyway, the UN is at it again. Not that surprising though, is it? It's what they do. They lie and they distort things. All right. Information liberation. Carrie Bowler kicked off Religious Liberty Commission after defending Christians' religious liberties. So this is a few days ago now, but we hadn't done the show since this happened, so I wanted to mention it. Catholic activist Carrie, I'm not sure which, Prejean Bowler was booted off the White House Religious Liberty Commission on Wednesday after using her position to defend Christians' religious liberties and point out who is threatening them. Bowler has been removed from the Trump Religious Liberty Commission. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wrote Wednesday on X, "No member of the commission has a right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on any issue. This is clearly, without question, what happened Monday in our hearing on anti-Semitism in America. This was my decision." Yeah, but that's not what happened, is it? I don't know if you guys followed this at all. Says, though Bowler received overwhelming public support on social media for opposing Zionist attack on free speech and Christians' religious freedom, Jewish/Zionist activists demanded that Bowler be kicked off the commission. And guess what happened? Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, did exactly that, as he was told by his owners. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Trump's Religious Liberty Commission. No liberty for her, because she actually said what she thought. And you can't do that when it comes to that little country in the Middle East over there. Can you? All right. A few articles from RT. The Iranian dilemma. What risks does a military operation against Iran pose for Israel and the U.S.? From regional escalation to global energy shocks, a strike could trigger a cascade of strategic, economic, and geopolitical consequences. Prior to the recent meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Trump, Netanyahu's office had indicated Israel's intention to push for a broader Iran deal. Iran wanted the discussions to extend beyond nuclear issues and include limits on the development and testing of Iran's ballistic missile program, because they can't be armed, I guess. Israeli officials emphasized that Iran's missile capabilities pose a strategic threat compared to potential nuclear risks and must not escape international oversight. Yeah, that would be because the last time Iran sent all those missiles into Tel Aviv, it really took a lot of their infrastructure in that area out, and they don't want that to happen again. Therefore, they must go after the missiles. News outlet Axios called the meeting urgent. According to a White House official cited by Axios, the visit was originally scheduled for February 18th, but was moved up a week at the request of the Israeli side. This change signals Israel's intention to influence the American negotiating position before it becomes institutionalized. Recent political discourse within Israel shows a determination to take advantage of the present window of opportunity. Many Israeli experts and politicians believe that a unique historical configuration has emerged both in regard to regional power dynamics and the U.S.-Iran relationship. In this context, now it is the best moment to exert pressure on Iran. Yeah, again, Lady G would be very excited about that. Anyway, that is an RT article. Thought I would mention a couple more from this same site. Britain's Balkan ruse, how the UK turned press freedom into a weapon. You'll see who's pictured in this article picture. Millions in British funding, leaked contracts, and strategic media programs show how a state exports its vision of journalism to sway public opinion abroad. So we've got Starmer and we've got KC3 in this photo here. Imagine this: you're a journalist in your country. You're invited to a workshop on ethics, resilience, and methods for countering disinformation. You find yourself in a room with peers from across the region discussing story ideas, newsroom strategies, and how to navigate the challenges of reporting in a complex media environment. Your outlet is offered technical support, travel is covered, your civil society partners are encouraged to collaborate with, quote, independent media initiatives. Everything seems routine, professional, and benign. Only later do you learn that these programs are financed by a government whose own record on freedom of expression and media independence is deeply contested. The UK has been spending millions each year exporting its vision of, quote, media freedom to strategically sensitive regions. Leaked internal documents reviewed by RT Investigations reveals how this strategy has been implemented in the Western Balkans, where an elaborate organizational edifice has been put in place designed not merely to support journalism but to shape media ecosystems and influence public opinion under the banner of press freedom. Yeah, well, it is only a banner. It does not exist anymore in the UK. We know this because they are literally letting some of the worst criminals out of jail and putting in people who are tweeting things that they do not agree with. Hillary Clinton using Ukraine to avoid jail, according to a Putin envoy. Yeah, her testimony, I think, is on the 26th, so it's coming up pretty soon here. The former U.S. Secretary of State is attempting to distract from the Russiagate hoax. Hillary Clinton is attempting to use Ukraine as a distraction to avoid jail time for her role in fabricating the Russiagate hoax. Russian presidential envoy Dmitriev has said. The remarks come as Clinton has escalated attacks on Trump's approach to the Ukraine conflict. Clinton delivered a belligerent speech at the Munich Security Conference last week, accusing Trump of pursuing a disgraceful policy toward Ukraine and claiming he has betrayed the West and abandoned human values. The former Secretary of State also touted a plan to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles and expand strikes inside Russian territory. That is something they really want. More war with Russia. In a post on X, Dmitriev responded by claiming Clinton tries to use Ukraine as a distraction, not to go to jail for her Russiagate hoax. Well, he's not wrong, I don't think. Hillary and Bill are scheduled to appear for deposition before the U.S. House Oversight Committee next week. Again, it's the 26th and 7th, I think. Her on the 26th. As part of the ongoing investigation into Epstein's crimes. However, House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan has noted that Clinton will also face questions beyond Epstein, including about her campaign's role in propagating the discredited Russiagate conspiracy. Yes, or as Trump says, Russia, Russia, Russia. That was her thinking. That was her plans that brought all that into being back in 2016 or whenever it was. Leftists admit AOC bombed on world stage. Taiwan word salad was terrible, and you know it. Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, is facing a mounting backlash as prominent figures on the left respond to the Congresswoman's embarrassing and damaging performance on the international stage at the Munich Security Conference in Germany, which apparently is the same thing Hillary was speaking at, too, that I was just mentioning. The four-term Congresswoman, widely discussed as the potential 2028 Democrat presidential contender, oh, please, struggled repeatedly to answer basic foreign policy questions during the conference, producing moments that quickly went viral and intensified scrutiny of her readiness for national leadership. Says even sympathetic progressive commentators acknowledge the scale of the problem. During an appearance on Piers Morgan's show, this YouTuber, a leftist YouTuber, attempted to defend AOC after she faltered. So here's one thing that was said, talking about should U.S. commit troops to defend Taiwan. Here's what she said. I think that this is such a, I think that this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States, quote, end quote. That was her response. She began stammering before offering a vague word salad response centered on avoiding confrontation. So, if you don't believe me, the video clip's right here. I don't have it queued up with the sound, but it is here embedded in this page on Slay News. Cohen defended AOC, arguing that the backlash was, quote, super unfair. I think what she's basically being asked here is that if the U.S. should, engage in what may be tantamount to a war with the other biggest global superpower on Earth. That's not an easy question. Yeah, but if she's going to run for president, it's something she should be prepared to answer. Anyway, I'm looking to see what else you might have said. It says AOC's Taiwan answer was only one of several moments that drew ridicule across the political spectrum. At another point, she claimed Venezuela was, quote, below the equator, while criticizing the Trump administration's handling of Maduro. But Venezuela is not below the equator, a basic geographic error that fueled further criticism. Venezuela is above the equator. She had a number of clangers that I expect to see for 3 years in meme video comps, someone said here. Yeah, and then says whoever convinced AOC that she had successfully completed her tutoring and was now ready to give book reports about foreign policy in public really should look for another line of work. So anyway, more AOC craziness embedded here on the page if you want to check into it. ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net. It's a website that I used to mention pretty often. Just kind of forgot about it. That's why it dropped off the Diamond Report map there for a little while. But this one I thought was kind of interesting. It says the coming national security emergency The DHS was in Maricopa County, Arizona Election Center last week, sparking rumors of a raid similar to the one recently seen in Fulton County, Georgia. Juan O'Savin tells Nino Rodriguez, who he has a podcast on YouTube, that the Arizona authorities were cooperating with the feds to some extent in order to prevent a repeat of what happened in Georgia. He pointed out that on March 25th last year, Trump had issued Executive Order 14248, ordering states and counties to clean up their voter rolls. However, very few complied. So here it is right here, I guess. Executive Order 14248, March 25th last year. Preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. This is what he signed. But they just ignored it, just like the Democrats always do. Similarly to how Trump's federal pardon for Tina Peters was ignored by the state of Colorado, Executive Order 14248 has been ignored by states' governments. This is insurrectionist. Nothing has been done about the voter fraud machines, and the clock has ran out on fixing this through Congress. This is why a new executive order is imminent regarding U.S. elections that will be fortified by a national security emergency declaration in order to force action on the states and counties. Yeah, because otherwise they'll just keep ignoring. Juan says that the Trump administration has the proof that the U.S. voting system is currently under attack and that it has been successfully attacked in the past by other countries in collusion with American traitors, and that these attacks constitute acts of war where the voting system itself is the weapon. Therefore, there will be military action to protect the civil rights of American citizens that has to be honest vote and get the real candidates into office that they voted for. Juan points out that if there is any question within the context of national security emergency that they're unable to pull off the elections safely and securely, the 2026 midterm elections could be delayed. He says, I don't know that that's going to happen. I think there is a strong possibility. So here's the actual transcript, I guess, of the interview here, the podcast on some of this with Nino Rodriguez on his podcast. I don't see it embedded here. I guess they didn't actually put that in here, but it could be this, actually, where the eagle is here. So anyway, that was one I wanted to mention just because I thought that was worth repeating. All right, and then we have several Leo Hohmann Substacks. He had several really good ones this week. The growing isolation and persecution of Christians who put Christ first in their faith and America first in their politics. The warmongering neocon ideology that dominates Washington is driving a wedge right through the middle of the Christian churches. This is a satanic attack being exploited by the globalists. The Kabuki Theater, known as the Iran peace talks, continues this week in Geneva. Everyone knows that Trump is going to invade Iran for the purpose of regime change, with the strategic endgame and exit strategy still very opaque. They really don't know what type of hell on earth could be triggered by such a war, especially if Russia and China decide to get involved on the side of Iran, but they're willing to risk it. Why is that? Why are our leaders so eager to start another Middle East war? I think anyone who is honest with themselves knows why. It has to do with the special relationship America has with one particular ally in the Middle East, who feels Iran must be destroyed, no matter what the cost in terms of American and Israeli lives. I would say, just to that, I would say, mostly they care about their own lives, and they don't care about American lives being lost. At least in past wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the U.S. had a broad coalition of nations willing to charge into war with us. This time, it's just us and Israel. American and Western Christians get labeled as Islamophobes and even terrorists if we dare to question Islam and the warlike approach that some Muslims take in practicing their religion. But I have now experienced firsthand that we come under equally fierce and slanderous attacks if we question the motives of Israel in its hyper-aggressive pursuit of its enemies, to the point where we get branded anti-Semites for our lack of support for putting Israel first in every foreign policy decision. Yes, it's not even foreign policy. It's every decision possible, from what I gather. If we question why the American tech giant Palantir is creating kill lists in Gaza with an admitted 10% error rate, resulting in the deaths of many innocent Palestinian Christians and Muslims, we are called anti-Semitic. If we question the pedophile Epstein's role as an agent of the Israeli government, we are anti-Semitic. And now if we are unwilling to send our children or grandchildren to war on behalf of Israel in a potential World War III scenario, we are anti-Semitic. Do you see a pattern here? Yes. So once again, Leo is summing it up beautifully. So that is one of his Substack posts, and we'll link to all these in my Substack post. If you're already on the list, you can watch for that. Hopefully we'll send it out tomorrow. It could be, well, this is Tuesday. It could be Thursday at this point. Anyway, be on the list, and you won't have to go search for any of these articles. I'll send them to you, right to your inbox. And then here's another Leo Homan Substack. Hackers claim to have broken into the government's chief data collection firm, Palantir, and here's what they claim to have found. Palantir has become the most dangerous company in the world. On Monday, yesterday, it was reported on X that Palantir was allegedly hacked. Palantir is a premier data collection and data analysis company for the CIA, the FBI, the DoD, IRS, and ICE, among other three-letter federal agencies. The company's AI-powered technology is used, for example, to identify and create a dossier on protesters, whether they be on the left or on the right. It has also been used to create kill lists for Israel's IDF to use against the Palestinians in Gaza and for the Ukrainian military to use against Russians. Palantir was reportedly subjected to a hacker attack during which top-secret information was allegedly obtained. EA Daily reports that this information was allegedly transferred to Russia and China as announced on X on yesterday, by Kim.com, a German/Finnish internet entrepreneur who is also a known player in the global hacker community. Yeah, Kim.com does know what he's talking about. Worth a follow on X, if you ask me. An AI agent was used to gain access to Palantir's files. And here's what the hackers allegedly found. Palantir co-founders Peter Thiel and Alex Karp commit mass surveillance of world leaders and titans of industry on a massive scale. Not surprised, are you? They have thousands of hours of transcribed and searchable conversations of President Trump, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk. They've achieved backdoor access to the devices, cars, and jets of world leaders and accumulated the biggest archive of blackmail material. I tend to believe this, don't you? Palantir is creating nuclear and bioweapon capabilities for Ukraine and is working closely with the CIA to defeat Russia. They believe they are 1 year away. They plan to achieve this by keeping Russia busy with meaningless peace negotiations. Palantir is responsible of the majority of Palestinian deaths in Gaza. They have developed the AI targeting for Israel. Palantir is an arm of the CIA, and all data from international clients is copied into a CIA spy cloud. Palantir has become the most dangerous company in the world. If you work there, you have the right to know that this is what Palantir AI is used for without your knowledge. The Palantir data the hackers allegedly gathered will be given to Russia and or China. Says I, meaning Kim.com, was chosen as a trusted partner for this publication. I'm not involved in the Palantir hack, and I don't know the hackers. But I do know that the hack happened, he said. Wow. That is insane. Says Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel was named in the Epstein files as having email exchanges with Epstein, in which Epstein said, as you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds. You can read more about that in my report on February 2nd, Leo Hohmann stated. So anyway, I read a lot of that, but there's a little bit more here on this Substack piece. Wow. That is surprising, and yet it's not really. All right. I mentioned this earlier. This is the follow-up. Some good news. Ring Doorbell cancels its partnership with the police-connected surveillance firm Flock Safety. A rare victory for privacy rights thanks to independent sites like ours that have been reporting on the growing track and trace surveillance state being erected through public-private partnerships. It says we have some rare good news to report today that comes from Biometric Update, an excerpt from which appears below on the cancellation of a partnership that would have been devastating for privacy rights. It appears that Ring Doorbell's recent Super Bowl ad, in which it bragged about its ability to scan pictures of all dogs in a given neighborhood to locate a lost pet, has backfired, which I mentioned earlier, causing scrutiny on how this technology could be used for less benevolent purposes. From Biometric Update, Amazon-owned Ring and Flock Safety have canceled their planned partnership, stepping back from an integration that would have linked one of the country's largest networks of residential doorbell cameras with a rapidly expanding law enforcement surveillance platform. That would be Flock Safety. That's what that is. Says the now scrapped partnership. See, it makes me wonder if they really did, or if they just are going to take it, behind closed doors a little deeper and still go through with it. That's how I tend to think anyway. So there's a little bit more here on this with the connection between Flock Safety and Ring doorbells. All right, and then let's see, one more from Leo's Substack. I had several good ones this week. Trump getting closer to pulling the trigger on major ground war against Iran as large personnel moving aircraft head for the region and second aircraft carrier ordered into the Middle East. Is the man who ran as the peace president about to send U.S. soldiers into the biggest hostile arena since the 2003 Iraq War? That is a good question. Let's hope not, but it's not looking too good, judging from all of the assets that are being sent over there. So anyway, I'll leave this one to you guys if you want to check it out. And again, Hal Turner's been reporting on this too, but Leo is confirming much of what Hal has stated as well. All right, we've got a couple of natural news articles I wanted to mention. Meta plots facial recognition for smart glasses amid political tumult. Smart glasses. Meta is considering adding facial recognition to its Ray-Ban smart glasses, a feature that would allow wearers to identify strangers. An internal document suggests the company may time the launch to exploit periods of political distraction when civil liberties groups are less able to mount opposition. See how that works? The technology would scan faces without consent, creating sensitive biometric face prints of unsuspecting bystanders in public and private spaces. Meta has a history of costly legal settlements totaling nearly $7 billion related to previous facial recognition systems deemed deceptive or non-consensual. The plan faces significant legal hurdles as many states now require affirmative consent for biometric data collection, which is impossible to obtain from random passers-by. No kidding. In a move that privacy advocates have long feared, Meta, which, by the way, if you don't know, Meta is Facebook and Instagram. Meta is actively developing facial recognition technology for its popular Ray-Ban smart glasses. According to internal documents obtained by the New York Times, the company is not only advancing the controversial feature, but is strategically considering launching it during a period of intense political upheaval. What, like an internal civil war type thing in America? Is that what they're talking about? The goal, as stated in a company memo, is to exploit a moment when civil society watchdogs are focused on other concerns thereby minimizing organized opposition to a product that would fundamentally alter public anonymity. So they're basically saying here, it sounds like, that they know when the next civil upheaval may happen. That's what I'm gathering from this. Or they have a hand in it, perhaps. The blueprint for biometric surveillance. So this goes into the details here a little bit more. Proposed feature, internally dubbed name tag, would allow a wearer of Meta's camera-equipped glasses to scan the face of any individual within view. The system would then match the scan against a database to provide identifying information via Meta's AI assistant. This transforms a consumer wearable into a portable biometric scanner capable of harvesting face prints from every passerby, subway rider, or cafe patron who inadvertently enters its frame, all without their knowledge or consent. So you can see how the people who like to kidnap people will really love this, because they can be wearing these glasses and walk up to a complete stranger and know all kinds of information about them, including their name, and strike up a conversation with them. You can see how this can go bad really, really fast. That was just my little sidebar here. This represents a seismic shift in the application of facial recognition. Unlike stationary cameras or government databases, embedding this capability into millions of consumer devices normalizes biometric surveillance, moving it from controlled environments into every corner of daily life. A face print is uniquely sensitive data. Unlike a compromised password, it is permanent and immutable, creating a lifelong digital trail linked to a person's physical appearance. Yeah, they had, I was recently in a glasses store and was picking out a new set of frames. I don't have them yet, but they had AI glasses in there. And I was asking them, the lady who was helping us, I was asking her specifically about those, just trying to get some information. I said, how do they work? Do they run off of Bluetooth? Figuring that they probably did. And she said, yeah, they do. And an app on your phone. So it wasn't quite this step that we're reading about here, but it was, I said, well, who's buying it? And she said, it's the young people who are doing, social media influencing type of things. So they're using it to give their view, their perspective from their eyeballs, from their glasses, and what they're seeing. That's what is currently available now. If you walk into an eyeglasses shop, you will see that they have AI frames in there now. Now, they're not doing what I'm reading about here. Meta is doing this, and this is something that is on the verge of happening, what I was just reading about. But it is, to some extent, available right now. So that is some scary stuff. One more from Natural News. Wanted to mention this one because we all are suffering to some degree from the buildup of heavy metals in the body. And I don't mean heavy metal music from the 80s. No, I mean actual heavy metal toxins being sprayed down from us from the skies in particular, but also, in the foods, in the beverages, in all kinds of places in everyday life. So this is something that you could look at here. It says everyday foods like strawberries and cilantro can disarm and eliminate heavy metals from the body. They're showing lemons and kiwis here as well. In a world where industrial byproducts linger in soil and trace metals drift through the air, I think there's a lot of metals in the air, don't you? It's come out. That's what's in the geoengineering fallout, nanoparticles. The concept of detoxification has often been co-opted by the wellness industry, wrapped in expensive juices and complex cleanses, yet emerging nutritional science points to a more accessible arsenal, one already sitting in the crisper drawer or spice cabinet. A growing body of research suggests that a strategic food-first approach, rich in specific plants and herbs, can help the body gently counteract and eliminate toxic heavy metals like lead, arsenic, and mercury. This isn't about a drastic purge, but about harnessing the protective biochemistry of everyday ingredients, turning mealtime into a form of quiet daily resistance against pervasive environmental toxins. It says key points: heavy metals such as lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, and aluminum are widespread environmental contaminants linked to serious neurological, developmental, and chronic health issues. Dietary strategies focusing on sulfur-rich foods, antioxidant herbs, specific fibers, and algae can support the body's innate detoxification pathways. Foods like cilantro, garlic, and citrus pectin have demonstrated the ability to bind to metals or boost protective enzymes, aiding their removal from the body. Incorporating foods like strawberries and peanut butter can provide additional detox support through their fiber and nutrient profiles. Caution is advised with certain supplements, as some turmeric products, particularly those from regions with lax regulations, have been found to be adulterated with lead. Yeah, so if you're using turmeric, and I do, make sure you're not getting stuff that's loaded with lead. You want the cleanest you can get. Anyway, there's further information here about some of these chelating properties of everyday foods. Thought that was kind of neat. Again, that is on Natural News, and we will link to that in the Substack list of links that I send out. Thought this one was an odd one, just because why now? Obama walks back viral claim that aliens are real. Former President Barack Insane Obama has walked back his casual claim that aliens are real during an interview on a progressive podcast. Obama was asked about extraterrestrial life during a rapid-fire interview on the podcast called No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, released over the weekend. I think that's the same person who was, I was just mentioning when we were talking about AOC and some of the crazy stuff she was saying and nonsensical stuff she was saying. I think this is the same guy, Brian Cohen. So, quote, "Are aliens real?" the host asked. Obama replied, "They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it? There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States." I think that's the whole point, don't you? The clip spread like wildfire online as people have long wondered what presidents actually know about life on other planets. That's if of course, you even buy the fact that aliens, quote unquote, are from other planets. That's the common thing that people, I guess, believe, but not me. On Sunday, Obama posted the viral clip on Instagram. So he posted it and wrote, "I was trying to stick with the spirit of the speed round, but since it's gotten attention, let me clarify. Statistically, the universe is so vast that the odds are good that there's life out there. But the distances between solar systems are so great, and the chances we've been visited by aliens is low, and I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us." Really? So here's the clip. President Trump has repeatedly said the topic is one of the most common questions he receives, and has voiced his support for greater transparency, though he himself is not a believer in aliens, Trump said. 2019, Trump told ABC, "I did have one very brief meeting on it. People are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly," he told Tucker Carlson. Later the same year, "Personally, I tend to doubt it. I'm not a believer, but I guess anything is possible." That's what he told Tucker. Though he's skeptical, Trump has also said that there are things happening that cannot be explained. Such as why Pam Bondi's still in her position in Cash Patel. That's unexplainable. That's maybe even more unexplainable than space aliens. In 2024, during an interview on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast in June 2024, Trump said he had met with pilots who reported having seen things that you wouldn't believe. "But I have met with people, serious people, who say there are some really strange things flying around out there," Trump said. When asked if he had access to files about extraterrestrial life, Trump confirmed that he does. I have access, and I speak to people about it. I've had actual meetings on it, also saying he'd heard of unidentified flying objects that are round in form, going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. He said, there you go. So I went from Obama saying they don't exist really, that yes, they do exist, no, he has no information, to Trump saying he's been in on some of the meetings. So figure that one out. And a little bit of sad news, if you didn't already hear. Robert Duvall, legendary Hollywood actor, has passed away. There he is there. Remembering Robert Duvall. Says, legendary Hollywood actor, best known for his role as Tom Hagen, a loyal concierge in The Godfather, has passed away. He was 95. Passed away peacefully at his home in Virginia. Cause of death not disclosed. Well, he was 95. Anyway, pretty sad, but I guess it was time. There's his wife, I guess. Robert Duvall earned a total of 7 Academy Award nominations. He won an Oscar for Best Actor in Tender Mercies. He also starred in Apocalypse Now. So, Robert Duvall has made the jump to hyperspace. And I had to look this up because I'd forgotten what the character's name was, but I'll pull this up as well. This is the first thing I remember seeing him in, which was actually his film debut. He was in the classic film To Kill a Mockingbird, and he was, what was his name? Boo Radley, I think, right? Yeah, Boo Radley. So that was his film debut in 1962. So he'd been making films since then. Boo Radley. To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a good movie. This one I wanted to mention because this is a guy that I know. Megachurch pastor diagnosed with stomach cancer. Jay Strother, a senior pastor of Brentwood Baptist Church, plans to step away from the pulpit after a stomach cancer diagnosis. So I just found out about this actually yesterday. I used to be a member of Brentwood Baptist Church, which is why I know Jay. Jay is a very godly man, loves the Lord, and loves his family. And I'm really sorry to hear about this. So maybe keep Jay Strother in your prayers because it's not really looking too good, unfortunately, here. It says a Tennessee megachurch pastor shared in a public letter that he was diagnosed in December with an abdominal mass, later confirmed to be malignant. His treatment plan has not been finalized and is pending further testing, but his medical team said he will likely need to take time away from his ministry for treatment, major surgery, and extended recovery. Strother called upon the congregation to pray with him over the diagnosis and said the church will continue to rest on Christ as its cornerstone, not on any individual leader. Regular updates on his condition can be found on the church website. And it's talking about where is Brentwood Baptist. It's a church affiliated with Southern Baptist Convention and sports 9 campuses clustered around Nashville, Tennessee, with more than 7,000 congregants attending church each week. According to its 2025 annual report, church, through its partner ministries, also recorded 2.7 million gospel conversations, over 1 million professions of faith around the world last year. So anyway, the church that I was with whenever I did a couple of different mission trips I've mentioned before, the one time I went to Thailand, and then later Hong Kong on that same trip, and then also a mission trip to Cape Town, South Africa. That was also, both of those trips were when I was going to Brentwood Baptist. So just a little sidebar there. But yeah, Jay Strother is a really good guy, and I hate to see that that this has happened. I don't know if you're thinking the question that I'm thinking about, did he take the you-know-what? I have no idea. They weren't really promoting it or anything like that, although it's very possible that he did. I don't have any idea. People just get cancer too. I don't know how bad this is. I guess how bad it is and how quickly he gets better or how quickly he gets worse might have us, might tell us a little bit more information on that question as to whether or not he took it, but I don't know. No idea. I haven't been going to this church since. I guess I stopped there. I stopped going there. When was it? 2013 or so, probably. Something like that. 13 or 14. So it's been a long time. But Jay's a good guy. So maybe say a prayer for Jay and his family, if you think about it. All right. Daily Signal. Yet again, illegal alien fleeing ICE kills a teacher in a car crash. A Georgia teacher is dead after an illegal ran a red light while fleeing ICE and crashed his car into her vehicle. The fatal crash occurred in Savannah, Georgia. The Chatham County Police Department has charged Oscar Lopez, an illegal alien from Guatemala, with first-degree homicide by vehicle, reckless driving, failure to obey traffic control device, and driving without a valid license. But I bet he could vote. ICE agents first saw Vasquez Lopez enter a vehicle and attempt to perform a traffic stop, according to Department of Homeland Security. Lopez initially appeared to comply, but video posted by local news appears to show him speeding away. He attempted to make a U-turn and ran a red light, crashing into Linda Davis, the Savannah teacher. This is the guy, Oscar Lopez. And then this is the teacher. So, really sad. Anyway, it continues, doesn't it? This is one that happened, I don't know, just real recently here. Yet again, another shooting. Now, this one didn't appear to be a mass shooting of just random people, but it was related to a trans shooter, or at least someone pretending to be a woman. So let's just leave it at that. It says, harrowing moments, high school hockey players flee for their lives as a dad shoots wife and 3 kids. Quote, he shot my family. Shocking video shows the moment high school hockey players were forced to flee for their lives after a father opened fire on his family inside a Rhode Island ice skating rink before taking his own life. Live stream footage of the game showed players starting to duck down on the sidelines after about 6 shots rang out at the Dennis Lynch Arena in Pawtucket, about 10 miles outside of Providence. Other players who were on the ice scrambled to reach the sidelines to get to safety. After a total of about a dozen shots were fired, spectators could be heard screaming and crying. Following the shooting, a woman told this local channel here that her father was the shooter. This is a quote, he shot my family and he's dead now, the unidentified woman said, adding that he has mental health issues. Yes, he sure does. A source told the ATF explained to Fox News that the gunman shot and killed his wife and opened fire on his children before turning on the gun himself. At least 2 people were killed in the tragedy in what authorities said stemmed from a family dispute. One of the children was pronounced dead at the local hospital, while a second child remains in the hospital, along with 2 others, all of whom are in critical condition. So here you can see the rink and the hockey players running, skating for cover. Family dispute. Hockey players on the ice were not harmed in the shooting. Yeah, he was just after his own family, which is wild. This is just one of the witnesses. He was one of the hockey players, I guess. I'm looking to see if they show the guy in this picture. I don't think they are. This is a Daily Mail article. They don't show the guy here. Which I guess, Daily Mail is what it is. Not that surprising, is it? Well, this is the lady. No, this is him. So clearly he had mental issues, just judging really quickly on what you can see here. And interestingly enough, they actually reported that he was a man dressed in women's clothing. They didn't say he was trans. NBC's Dan Janig reported, citing a law enforcement source, that the suspect was a father who may have been dressed in women's clothing and that he intentionally targeted family members who were at the hockey game. It appears from a self-inflicted gun wound, but we are going to investigate fully. So there's the guy that did it. And then, if that wasn't weird enough, look at this one. This is the guy here. Same dude. Giving a bottle to a little kid. Breaking. Trans murderer told Alex Jones on X, STFU means shut the, you know what? Shut the F up. And blamed conservatives for trannies going effing berserk 1 day before killing his wife, daughter, and himself. So he told Alex to STFU, and then he goes out and kills his wife, his daughter, and himself. A 56-year-old man who identified as a woman shot and killed the mother of his child and their son at a high school hockey game on Mondays. I don't know what the headline says, daughter. The shooter was actively arguing with conservative commentators on social media in the days before the attack. Robert Dorgan, that's the guy's name, also known as Roberta Esposito, opened fire during his son's Rhode Island hockey game, where he shot 4 family members, 2 fatally, and a family friend before eventually shooting and killing himself. Chilling footage from the game shows the moments the trans shooter opened fire and was restrained by brave bystanders. Robert Dorgan also used the name Roberta Esposito. Just 1 day prior to the attack, Dorgan defended transgender Congressman Tim McBride on X. Outspoken conservative Kevin Sorbo, the actor, posted that McBride, who goes by Sarah, is a man. InfoWars founder Alex Jones responded, quote, "So creepy." With Dorgan replying to Jones, STFU Alex, don't be so butthurt over somebody different. Then wonder why trans people go effing berserk. This is Tim McBride. Tim McBride is a man. Community note this if I'm wrong, which that is a guy, very clearly. He goes by Sarah. See, and Alex says right here, so creepy. Which, that's true. And then Roberta Dorgano, STFU Alex, don't be so butthurt over somebody different, then wonder why trans people go effing berserk, and then turns around and kills his family and himself the next day. Isn't that weird? These people have some serious mental health issues. Some of it can be pointed to whatever drugs they're taking, of course. Illegal or not, I don't know. Just very strange. Again, breaking news that proves we're living in the end times. That's what we're doing here on this show. All right, so this is, chalk this one up to more cultural enrichment, is what this is. So, hockey fans, so we're going to stick with the hockey theme for just a minute. Hockey fans in Oshawa, now that's in Canada, were asked to shower before heading to the rink. And again, cultural enrichment. Think cultural enrichment. So here's what it is. It's the stink in the rink, as they're calling it. We're thrilled to have, this is the quote here. We're thrilled to have you with us each and every game and appreciate the energy you bring to the arena. To help ensure a clean, comfortable, and enjoyable experience for everyone, we kindly ask for your cooperation with a few simple hygiene practices. Please make use of the hand sanitizing stations located throughout the arena. Cover coughs and sneezes and be mindful of personal cleanliness while sharing our space with fellow fans. If you're feeling unwell, we encourage you to take care of yourself and cheer us on from home when possible. If you went to the gym or did something that produced body odor, please shower before attending the game. You know why they had to post this? Because now they're having so many Indians going to the hockey games that it's literally causing a stink in the rink. And I don't mean American or Native American Indians. I'm talking Indians from India who very clearly have a reputation of not showering very often. Let's just put it that way. The smell emanating from the home of OHL's Oshawa Generals isn't coming from the bench or, given the team's record, the ice. The stink in the rink, it seems, is coming from the stands. The Generals, who own the worst record in the Canadian Hockey League, CHL, sent a letter to season ticket holders asking them to clean up their act and clean up before attending games at the Tribute Community Center. The letter was apparently in response to recent complaints from fans. And I just read it to you. That was a letter. We don't want to smell you in your BO. So that is exactly why they're doing it, because of all of the, especially Indian people and illegals, or now legals, I guess, in Canada, right? They just automatically make them legal residents. The stink in the rink. Maybe you, it says. It's not the hockey team, it's the people attending the game. Just shows you how wonderful cultural enrichment actually is. So we knew about the Somalis and the ongoing fraud in the healthcare systems in Minnesota. Well, here's another one. Michigan, adult foster care fraud, the investigation. 3-part series. A deep look into 3 home care networks in Wayne County, Michigan. We follow the money, find the shell companies, and show who really runs these homes. Michigan's adult foster care system moves over $1 billion a year into licensed homes. These homes are supported to give round-the-clock care to adults who can't live alone. Using only public records, we found a cluster of care homes in Dearborn, Michigan. Many run by Nigerian immigrants tied together through shell companies and shared ownership. One family stands out. $1 billion plus industry size. $2.5 million. That's one family's take. $2.5 million. Homes that look empty during business hours, maintenance problems that nobody fixes, millions in public money flowing in with zero accountability on the other end. It sounds identical to what was going on in Minnesota. Same exact thing. Except this one is the Nigerians, and it is adult foster care fraud, which, you know, they probably have the child care fraud and health care fraud and stuff going on as well. This is just yet again another story of ongoing fraud, bilking the taxpayers out of billions. So this is on a site called Unheard News. Unheard News. So you've heard it now. I thought it was worth mentioning because these things keep popping up. All right. This is another Substack here. NXR Studios is what this one is. Why AIPAC should be banned, blacklisted, and banished from the U.S. It's not a group of concerned Americans. It's a foreign influence campaign that spies on the United States and floods our political system with corrupt cash. And there are 3 of the culprits right there, aren't they? Yeah. What if there was a lobby so powerful that presidents publicly complained about being outmatched? What if that same organization started as something else entirely, something that would be illegal today? What if the same networks pushing America into Middle Eastern wars kept showing up in espionage scandals? What if everything you were told about anti-Semitic conspiracy theories was designed to stop you from reading public records? What if the most powerful foreign policy lobby in American history built its entire operation on a legal loophole that would send anyone else to prison? Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. Anyway, there's further information here. We don't really need to get into this. We all know how bad AIPAC is, but talking about the American Zionist Council and so forth. So, yep. They are so much of the problem. They own most of Congress, as many of you guys know. AIPAC does. Not Thomas Massey, not just, a handful of people, but most of them they do. All right, Wine Press Substack. I'll just read some of these headlines here. World War III, Iran, Russia, China to hold naval drill in Strait of Hormuz in show of force in expanding a multipolar war. So that's a brand new post from the Wine Press. Technomancy. Zuckerberg's Meta patents AI that takes over your account after you die and keeps on posting forever. Isn't that lovely? What? Facebook and Instagram, maybe. Yeah. So anyway, there's just a couple of the headlines on the Wine Press. And then we usually look at this one as well. They had several really good posts this week. Wise Wolf from their Substack. This one was just called Epstein Was Eating Children. Cannibalism, torture, and the question nobody wants to answer. I hadn't had a drink in 3 years until last week. I was sober for 3 years, and the days of waking up with shaking hands before I could get a couple of shots of Jack into me were over. I thought I was done with that life. Then I started reading the unredacted Epstein files, and I went to the liquor store and bought half a gallon of Jack Daniels and spent the next 5 days drunk. So, because he was depressed because the nation is apparently ruled by cannibals. Yes. Which is way worse than drunks. Anyways, I don't know if this is serious or not. This is this is just showing how serious this is. This whole cannibalism thing. It's real, and that is some of what's been found out about, talked about in the Epstein files release. All these questions about jerky. Jerky's been found in the Epstein files a lot. It says, here's what you need to know and understand about beef jerky appearing through Epstein's correspondence. Beef jerky is preserved meat. You don't need to refrigerate it. You don't need to freeze it. It is shelf stable. So why would there be repeated references in the emails to needing to refrigerate containers for jerky? Needing refrigerated containers for jerky. Why would a restaurant called The Cannibal have its owner listed multiple times in documents related to a global child sex trafficking network? The restaurant is real. It was a high-end establishment in New York, but context matters. And when beef jerky keeps appearing in emails alongside references to torture and children in coded language that members of Congress are calling weird, quote, you don't get to pretend this is just about food preferences. Your brain is screaming at you right now that this can't be real. That's the defense mechanism. This is how it works. Do something so monstrous that decent people's inability to believe it becomes the security system. They've been doing this since Babylon. That they have. Again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. There you go. Cannibalism. It's becoming front and center with this Epstein release. So sick. All right. And then this one, also from Wise Wolf, was Epstein an Israeli spy? The international man of mystery. Pretty funny. This thumbnail took forever. Let's see. While everyone focused on sex trafficking aspect of Epstein's story, almost nobody knows Epstein, Musk's BFF Peter Thiel, and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak started a company that monitors Americans through their smartphones and delivers all that data directly to Mossad. So that is what this article is about. This is more about the spy aspect of Epstein. And then there's this one. Again, same Substack. Jeffrey Epstein's alive. The second island nobody told you about. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself because he's still alive. I've got the AI version of him singing. He's got an Iron Maiden shirt on and singing on a stage, I guess. Is Jeffrey Epstein still alive? The evidence says yes, and if you can't see it by now, then you've been so thoroughly beaten down by the machinery of state-sanctioned lies that you'll believe anything the authorities tell you. Which is exactly how they want it, because a population that can't recognize an obvious cover-up when it's happening in broad daylight is a population that's already lost.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Leon Black, the billionaire co-founder of Apollo Global Management, has long been tied to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal through massive payments and a close association that he himself has called a horrible mistake. Yet he shelled out $62.5 million in 2023 to the U.S. Virgin Islands to settle and avoid any potential claims tied to Epstein's operations there, where some of those funds indirectly supported Epstein's island empire.
The headline should be Leon Black paid Jeffrey Epstein $158 million for services over 5 years as like a tax advisor. This is a story of a U.S. billionaire paying a convicted sex offender hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, with the lending, it brings him $200 million into Jeffrey Epstein. And the report found that he visited Epstein's home in New York multiple times and his other homes around the world as well, in order to, cut his tax bill by $1 or $2 billion, which even that strikes me as concerning.
The leaked document from the Epstein files from 2026 DOJ releases consists of heavily redacted attorney notes from a May 2023 call. Multiple women accused Black of violent rape, often under the guise of massages. One described 7 to 8 years of sadistic abuse, including vaginal biting, causing excruciating pain and bleeding. Another claimed a brutal assault with head slamming. A third, a developmentally disabled 16-year-old girl with autism and mosaic Down syndrome, alleged trafficking by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, forced to massage Black naked, then violently raped, causing severe rectal and vaginal injuries. Of course, Black has vehemently denied all involvement, calling the accusations baseless, uncorroborated, insisting he's never met certain accusers. And now the outrage is exploding nationwide because LifeTouch, the company behind school pictures for countless American kids across the country, is owned by Shutterfly, which Apollo Global Management controls through its funds.
The rumors have caused concern among parents around the country.
No one really thought anything of it until we started thinking about, okay, wait, who actually is seeing these pictures instead of just the parents?
LifeTouch, too, has responded, releasing a statement which reads in part, LifeTouch is not named in the Epstein files. The documents contain no allegations that LifeTouch itself was involved in or that student photos were used in any illicit activities.
You want to know who owns those photos, and that's typically done by contract, and what can be done with the photos later between you and the photographer.
Stephen Clark is a South Bay-based attorney. He says it's important to read the fine print on consent forms for things like school photo shoots. Tech expert Ahmed Banafa agrees, especially given the chance of a data breach.
About 5 million pictures being sold on the dark web in 2023.
Meanwhile, in the latest torrent of Epstein documents, Woody Allen and Jess Staley emerge as another grotesque thread in the financier's web of influence. Allen pops up repeatedly in scheduling logs and emails, with Epstein even paying $15,000 for their kids' elite private school tuition. Emails between Woody Allen and Epstein reveal a conversation about cannibalism. Epstein says he didn't just cause heartburn, he ate them. Epstein says hearts. Then Allen says thanks. Allen says, at least I'm thinner. Epstein says, because you also eat the bones, providing fiber. Allen says, I don't like waste. Staley, the former J.P. Morgan rainmaker turned Barclays CEO, exchanged over 1,000 emails, some laced with creepy Disney princess references and young women's photos.
And so the New World Order is in deep trouble. They're basically done. And we should focus on the files they're suppressing. We should focus on the cover-up, but also focus on what we got.
A financial kingpin, a predator banker, and a legendary filmmaker, all orbiting the same twisted world of Jeffrey Epstein. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Yeah, how about that for a story, huh? Not exactly what you want to see. Your kids' pictures being saved on the multiple servers owned by LifeTouch, and then the CEO out there frolicking with Jeffrey Epstein. And that also goes for not just LifeTouch, but they mentioned the other picture company that was part of that. people get their, holiday pictures and stuff like that done. So who knows where these pictures go when you upload them to a website and you're trusting that no one's going to use them other than you. And that's not always the case, is it? Yeah, Shutterfly. So that is very disturbing and seems to me very realistic that these pictures could be ending up in places other than what people are thinking that they're there for, what they're being used for. And criminals by default break the law. So they don't care about any contracts that were signed. That's what the lawyer in the video there was stating, and didn't think that was really that there was any chance that photos could be misused like that. But these people are literally eating kids. They don't care about the laws. So I think that you might as well assume that photos being uploaded to LifeTouch or Shutterfly or whatever are being misused. So at least they were at some point. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and I thought that video was well done. Another really good John Bound report. And again, Wise Wolf, this particular post goes into the whole Epstein thing. Is he still alive? Is he not? And so forth. It seems to me like there's probably more evidence saying that he is still around than not. And we've got one more article on possible further proof here that he is still around. And let me find that. It's not in my list of links next, but I do have it here. I just want to make sure I don't miss the ones in between where I have them pasted here. So here's the other one that I wanted to bring up, just because we're on this whole Epstein thing at the moment. This is a website called On the Ditch, DITCH, On the Ditch. Gained access to Epstein's FedEx account, still live, shipments in 2024, address book with 90 plus names. The Ditch gained access to Jeffrey Epstein's FedEx account with records showing that it was used for shipments long after his death, and an address book including a senior Israeli military officer now considered a strategic consultant for diplomatic matters. One of the shipments, sent less than 2 years ago, was delivered to a dissolved company that owned and operated Epstein's private jet. U.S. Department of Justice published millions of files related to Epstein late last month, and The Ditch identified an unredacted password for Epstein's FedEx account. The record within the account login details has since been deleted. It says live and accessible. Jeffrey Epstein's FedEx account included the addresses and contact details of his high-profile associates like convicted child abuser Ghislaine Maxwell, sex trafficker Jean-Luc Brunel, and disgraced billionaire Les Wexner. Les Wexner was the guy that headed up Victoria's Secret, I think is the name of it. Among the lesser known of the almost 100 names is ex-Israeli Air Force Lieutenant Colonel turned strategic consultant Danny Grossman, who lists Alan Dershowitz as one of his clients. Grossman served in the U.S. Air Force before moving to Israel in 1979 and joining that state's equivalent. He claims to have had reports placed on the front page of the New York Times and has been a director of the American Jewish Congress. The FedEx account was used as recently as summer of 2024, despite Epstein's death in 2019. A shipment weighing just under half a kilogram was collected from an aircraft company, Gulfstream Product Support in Savannah, Georgia, and shipped to Plan D, LLC in Kennesaw, Georgia, on 20th of May, 2024. Plan D is the now dissolved company that Epstein incorporated to own and operate his private jet, which Donald Trump used during the 2024 U.S. presidential election campaign. Meanwhile, another package weighing 1.4 kilograms was shipped from the same Gulfstream address in Georgia to Empire Aviation in West Palm Beach on the 12th of March, 2024. according to invoices. The FedEx account names ex-Epstein accountant Bella Klein as its administrator, while Jeffrey Epstein is listed as the account holder. The FedEx account was still live and accessible at the time of publication. The U.S. Department of Justice has been contacted for comment. Yeah, and the DOJ under Pam Blondie ain't going to say nothing. So how about that? He's still got an active FedEx account, or at least he did. I think the guy's still around. Who knows if that part of it's true as far as the FedEx stuff, but it is very interesting, isn't it? So again, once again, tonight, we've said this a couple times, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. Another mass shooting. Now, this one was a few days ago. We were not broadcasting at the time in the Diamond Report, so I wanted to mention this, just to get it on the record. Mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC, British Columbia. So this is another trans shooting. Mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge leaves 8 dead, including 6 children, and a nation in mourning. Children lost in one of Canada's worst school shootings, remembered as kind, talented, and resilient. 8 people have been killed in the quiet community of Tumbler Ridge, BC, in one of the worst mass shootings in Canadian history. Police said the sole shooter, an 18-year-old, shot her mother and half-brother at home. It wasn't a her. It was a guy, an 18-year-old guy, pretending, or at least thought he was, a girl. But notice they're very careful to get his pronouns correct, even though he killed all these people. Police said the shooter killed his mother and half-brother at home before opening fire at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School and then killing herself, which is himself. The focus in the grief-stricken community of just 2,400 people has been to honor the victims, among them 6 children, age 11 to 13. They are being remembered as sweet, vibrant children whose losses have left a hole in their family and community. Leaders around the world have sent condolences to a nation where mass shootings are exceedingly rare. Yeah, well, again, criminals don't care about laws, rules. So he had a way of getting a gun. I don't know. Perhaps that area in Canada is an area where they were allowed to have guns. I don't know. Because some of the areas up in that far north part of Canada, they do have the ability to have some sort of firearms because of, wild animals and things like that. So they are allowed that. So I don't know if that was the case in this particular mass shooting. But, here we go yet again. 6 kids gone. So I just wanted to mention that one because we weren't here on the last show, hadn't happened yet. So just wanted to, again, get that one on the record. All right. And then there's this one. This is an X post. Thought this one was interesting as well. We keep hearing about this whole deal with Guthrie. And this is a couple of little dots to connect here that may have to do with what's happened to this woman's mother. Breaking, yep, her husband's company is listed as co-conspirator in the Epstein files, called FGS Global. In case you're wondering why now all of the times for Savannah Guthrie's mother to be kidnapped, Savannah Guthrie is in the Epstein files. She's linked to the Clintons. Her husband's name is Michael Feldman. He was the scrubber. That is the guy who got things harmful to the Clintons from the press, off the internet, and out of the public eye. He founded a PR consulting firm with Joe Lockhart. Joe Lockhart was Bill Clinton's White House press secretary. After Lockhart left government, he became a senior partner at the Glover Park Group, which was co-founded by Feldman. Joe Lockhart sold his D.C. property at 2446 Belmont Road Northwest, Washington, D.C. to the Obamas. Glover Park then made Greg Rothschild the managing director of the group's government affairs division. Rothschild's wife, Stephanie Herskowitz Rothschild, died in a bizarre traffic accident in 2021. And it says, down the rabbit hole we go. So this is Savannah Guthrie. It's her mother that's been kidnapped, and they're running all these stories about her mother. And this guy right here was a Clintonista, a cleanup man for Bill and Hillary, and therefore in the Epstein files. So there, at least in part, is some of the answer as to what happened to Mama Guthrie here. Not her, but her mother. So how about that? That is a weird one. All right, and then a follow-up to the last show we mentioned for Miss Emily. This is not good news. Says Nevada judge releases property manager tied to the biolab in Las Vegas. Federal judge ordered the release Friday of the property manager connected to the suspected biolab, who prosecutors charged with unlawfully possessing guns. U.S. Magistrate Judge Elena Yukak released Ori Solomon, 55, on a personal recognizance bond, ordering him to surrender his passport and stay within the continental U.S. Should Solomon leave the Las Vegas area, he must inform the court. I'm sure he will. Criminals do that. They like to stay in touch with the court. Police and FBI searched a home on Sugar Springs Drive and second home on Saturday, the 31st of January, finding a possible biological laboratory, including refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids, police said. Solomon is the home's property manager, sources confirmed. Federal documents indicate that he lived in one of the two homes searched Saturday with 3 children. Solomon, who is originally from Israel, is in the country on a non-immigrant visa and is barred from owning or possessing guns, prosecutors said. During searches, teams covered guns from Solomon's home. It says covered. They probably mean recovered. During the raid, officers found French and Israeli passports in Solomon's name. So back to Israel again. After his arrest on the state charge, Solomon called a family member from jail and asked, "Is there any guns left?" The documents stated. During another search on Monday, federal officers seized numerous firearms, ammunition, and firearm accessories in the home. So how about that? And the judge who released him on his own recognizance was also from that little country over in the Middle East. But there's probably nothing to be concerned about there, is there? Yeah. All right. And then I wanted to mention this one too. You may have seen this already. Civil rights activist Jesse Jackson dead at 84. Reverend Jackson died yesterday in his Chicago home, surrounded by family. He was 84. Had been battling progressive supranuclear palsy. How about that? A very rare degenerative disorder for over a decade. 84 years old. Civil rights activist, Baptist minister, and once a Democrat presidential candidate. His Rainbow Push Coalition, I remember that, the social justice organization Jackson founded and led for decades, described him as a consequential and transformative leader who changed the nation and the world. Well, I don't know about that. Anyway, he's made the jump as well. I'm not sure where he made the jump to, but Reverend Jackson, let's just say, wasn't exactly maybe who he portended to be, but anyway, I'm not being judgmental. I have no idea. I'm just saying he's not around, and, hopefully he had Jesus in his life for real. But I don't think he did, unless he did later in life. All right, so much talk about the Olympics lately, so I wanted to mention that just because This has been the story in the last day or two. Canada got accused of cheating at curling, and the memes are getting out of control. Curling. I was recently on the road, and I mentioned was on the road on a little trip Sunday and Monday. And, you're in a hotel and you have the TV on sometimes, and that's all that was on. It seems like it's just wall-to-wall curling all the time. That's all that's on the Olympics. Every time I turn on the TV, if it's on and the Olympics are on, it's curling. So I was just laughing myself hysterical on how ridiculously stupid this sport is. So that's the backdrop I have for this, because you have, like in the women's curling, you have women with little sweepers and scrubbers, and they're scrubbing the ice as hard as they can to get the rock to move an inch here or there or something. It's just so ridiculous. It's the dumbest sport ever. So anyway, apparently Canada got caught cheating. So I can't play this because I don't have it queued up. But here's what he says. This is a tweet here posted by Zions of Israel. It says Team Canada member Mark Kennedy tells Team Sweden you can F off. It says Oscar Eriksson of Sweden accused this guy on the Canadian team of double touching or touching the rock after initially releasing it down the ice during Canada's 8-6 win. So here's what happens here. He's saying you can F off to this guy, and here's what happens. This is the slow-mo version that he doesn't apparently know that it exists. There he is using the finger. See the finger? Watch. Right here. You can't do that. That is called cheating. And he's telling the guy to go F off. He didn't do it. He didn't touch it twice. There's clearly what they're calling Fingergate now, because this has become a big thing, I guess. So Sweden is accusing rival Canada of cheating by double touching the stone after it hits the green line. Also, you don't swear in curling. It's a gentleman's sport. Anyhow, and then this person, what they said was funny. Never cared about curling until I found out Sweden set up a surveillance operation to catch Canada cheating. Now I'm invested. And then, so here's the memes. So here's God with his finger pointing and touching the curling rock. Well, I don't know what that thing's called. It's a rock. I know that. And there he is there pointing. And there's the Canadian, leaf pointing and touching the curling thing. Everybody's got their finger out. Here's E.T. phoning home, I guess. Cheating does pay, buddy, this guy says. Goldfinger with his magic touch. So I didn't effing touch it. And there he is, not touching it. Me locked in on the Canada curling cheating scandal, knowing absolutely nothing about the rules of curling. I feel like that's pretty much how it is across the world. Nobody knows about curling other than its wall-to-wall coverage on NBC, at least in the United States. So what do you think about tonight's hockey? Can Canada poke the puck in any way? Here he is poking the puck. Too funny. So those are pretty good memes, you must admit. This first one's probably the best one, actually, with God touching it. Oh, man. Curling, yes. Who'd have thought? I don't even know how that got to be a sport. I mean, I understand most of the sports in the Olympics. Curling is not one that, in my opinion, should be there. And I don't even know why it's called that. But whatever. I digress. I thought that was funny. Maybe you guys don't, but I thought it was a good one. All right, and then let's see here. Modernity. Website I haven't mentioned in a while, but I came across this article. Paul Joseph Watson's site. Still around. He's still at it. And says, Miss America dethrones winner for daring to say a woman is a woman. Kaylee Bush, crowned Miss North Florida, rejected a contract that forces contestants to embrace transgender ideology. So this is her here. Right here. Miss North Florida winner Kaylee Bush speaks out after her crown was revoked for saying that men cannot become women. She says, I didn't lose my crown because I broke a rule. I lost the crown because I was unwilling to rewrite the truth. Men cannot be women. She just said that. And they stripped her of her crown and title. Miss America organization demanded Bush affirm transgender participation during a century-old celebration of women into another battleground for gender ideology. Bush, standing her ground on basic truth, called it out as a betrayal of the pageant's legacy, which she's absolutely right about that. Bush revealed the ordeal in a recent interview, explaining how she was pressured months after her win to accept new language into the contract. The rules now define eligible, quote, women as including those who've completed sex reassignment surgery via vaginoplasty, I guess, from male to female. Bush refused, stating flatly that she couldn't agree to do that. A little boy could not mutilate his body and become a woman. That's right. Again, the DNA doesn't change. It was heartbreaking and confusing. It was disappointing, she said, because Miss America has been honoring women for over 100 years, and now they can't even define what a woman is. That's what happens when organizations and companies become woke. Anyway, so way to stand your ground, I think, on that one. Of course, she didn't really have a choice other than she could have capitulated, I guess, early on. All right, and then Washington mediates closed-door meeting between Moscow and Kiev in Geneva. The meetings should continue Wednesday, following closed-door negotiations on Tuesday. So that is meaning, this week, tomorrow. I don't think we should expect any news today, Kremlin spokesperson says. Representatives from the U.S.-mediated peace negotiations between Russia and Ukrainian officials in Geneva, Switzerland on Tuesday, while many of the details of the day's talks are being kept under wraps for the time being. Discussions will continue tomorrow. Territorial disputes are expected to be the other main point of disagreement. Hours before the meeting began, Trump urged Ukraine to make a deal. Ukraine better come to the table fast, that's all I'm telling you. It seems like that's what he's been saying this whole time. And Zelensky and company, they're in there and then they're out. They're in and then they're out. So I think they just want to stretch it out as long as possible and never settle on peace. That's what it seems like to me. Anyway, that's a full article here on InfoWars. What else we have here? Vaccine impact article. Let's look at that one. Google's Gmail works with the Zionist government tracking your emails, but people refuse to stop using it. Well, they have a lot invested in their Gmail account at that point, not monetarily, but everyone in their whole life has that address as the way to reach them, so it doesn't really surprise me, does it you? Google's Gmail works with the Zionist government tracking your emails, but people refuse to stop using it. Let's see. I've been working in the field of technology for 30 years, Brian Shohavy is saying here. I used to be a Microsoft certified systems engineer and began putting up my own websites in the late 90s. I also did computer programming for years in Saudi Arabia in the 90s, developing educational software that today would be considered AI. And I was even published in academic journals within my field at that time. I was on the internet before Google was and watched Google grow into a worldwide dominant software company based on intelligence as they built the best search engine in the world. Yeah, but then they ruined it right after that. I'm just adding that. When they combined that search technology with a new email program called Gmail, it became the best email program in the world, mainly based on its search capabilities, but also its ease of use. Google was smart to give it away for free and thereby become the most used email program in the world. But nothing is ever truly free when it comes to big tech. They use your data to study market trends and develop products and advertising based on what you reveal to them using their, quote, free programs. Yeah, and apps are the same way, you guys, if you don't already know that. They don't give you the app because they're so wonderful and benevolent. They give you the app so they can sell your data. Most of Google's icons for their products are Freemason symbols, as you can see from their featured image of this article right here. So you have the Gmail logo, you have, the M, the Masonic Royal Rich Apron, is what it really is. The Google Chrome logo, the Divine King sign, 666. You can see the sixes here. The Google Play logo is the seal of Satan. See it right here. And Google GPS right here with the eye. The eye of providence is what it actually is. Just turn sideways. So how about that? Google is also a major military contractor for the U.S., and their products have reportedly been used by the Zionist state of Israel in their attacks on Palestinians and Iranian and Lebanese leaders. Today, Gmail is used by Google to train their industry-leading AI program, Gemini. But most people who use Google do not even know this, or if they know, they don't care. One has to allegedly manually turn it off. But some have found that even when turned off, it is accessing their emails. Don't allow Gemini AI to access your email. Yeah, it's probably just a switch somewhere where they, have a big button on there, and you click the button and you feel all great about having the switch move from one side of the screen to the other and said, okay, Gemini can't access my email now, but it doesn't actually do anything. That's my guess. The fact that Google shares data from people's free Gmail accounts with the U.S. government has been widely reported. One of the most recent reports came from the Washington Post last week about how Homeland Security was targeting Americans who opposed Trump's immigration policies based on what they wrote in their Gmail. And then here's information about that. I stopped corresponding with people on Gmail several years ago as I attempted to explain to them the dangers of privacy issues with using the free Google email program. As a result, I have lost email contact with family members, business associates, a fellow independent journalists over the refusal to not use Gmail to email with me. So there you go. Latest example, my own mother purchased a new smartphone. She advised me as to what her new email address was, which was a Gmail address. I tried to explain to her that I do not email people on Gmail and asked her to not take it personally, as it has been my policy for years, and suggested an alternative free secure email program. She said everybody she knows is using it and she wasn't going to change it. So there you go. Anyway, a little bit of info here on Gmail, and I know many of you guys are using Gmail. Just word of warning, wanted to put it out there. I have a Gmail account myself, so I can't really say that I'm Google free. I don't really use it for much of anything. It's really kind of a backup to a backup sort of system. But yeah, they do spy on literally everything. But we've already known this, haven't we? And again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. I don't think we have that long to worry about it, my friends. If you know what I mean. Jesus will be returning soon. Very soon. All right, let's see here. GeoWatch for this week. Show 549. So next week will be 550. Wow. We've been doing this a while now. Mr. Dane says, holiday weekend storm threatens millions across the South with flooding and severe weather. Valentine's weekend storm includes floods, severe threats in the South. Coldest storm of the season set to blast California. The climate engineers have scheduled flooding for the formerly flash-frozen Southeast and a chemical ice nucleation cool-down for the so far record warm winter in the West. Welcome to Weather Warfare. So that is Mr. Dane's show for this week. It's called Engineering Deluge. We did get a little rain, but not much. We were on the road, like I mentioned, Sunday and Monday. And where we were headed, we got rain. We were rained on the entire time. But then yesterday when we were driving back, there was no rain. It was sunny and nice. So I'm not sure how much of the engineered deluge actually happened in the Southeast. But they did have it planned. Every now and then their plans get slightly thwarted. So hopefully that's what happened here. I was hoping that we weren't going to be coming home to a, flooded Nashville after we just had the ice storm and power out and all that stuff, but no, we didn't. Luckily, we came back home to everything being fine. So 6 to 10 day outlook. This is the page that I always refer to as the scheduled weather. This is valid from February 23 to 27. So we've got a few days yet, but that's kind of what we're looking at. It's going to be pretty warm, looks like, above normal, especially in the Texas, New Mexico area. But, yep, only Alaska is cool. So the geoengineering planes must be flying around the North Pole, Alaska, and I guess down in Florida. Because Florida is also below normal, which is highly unusual. Everybody else is kind of near to above normal. Again, whatever normal is, I have no idea. All right, and then Climate Reanalyzer, we'll look at that as well. I'd like to see where we're at on here, just because kind of tells you in the short term what to expect temperature-wise. So right now, where I am, 17 degrees above normal. So this is still that warm rebound that we get after the chemical flash freeze, the chemical cool downs that they do. This is still that rebounded temperature. You can see now, as of right now, February 18th, which will be tomorrow, they're trying to cool the west. So the geoengineering planes apparently at the moment are out west, not back east, because the east and southeast area is, pretty warm, quite a bit warmer than usual even, and then the chemical cool down's happening out west. So there is 1 to 3 days, 4 to 6 days, it is shifting a bit. So starting in about 4 days from now, we will be 6 degrees below where we normally would be. So it's going to cool off, according to this, in the next few days. We'll be 6 degrees below where we normally are, and then still about 2 degrees below normal. So with the west starting to warm up again. This is 7 to 10 days out, which is February 24th. So we're talking about the next week. We go from warm to a little bit cooler to still a little bit cooler and warmer out west. So that is the geoengineering climate catastrophe, at least in the short term. Climateeconomy.com. Roundup of today's climate headlines. Let me just look through here. I haven't pre-checked any of these. I just wanted to pop it in here and have a look at it. Greenland sled dog champion fears for his culture and as climate change melts the ice. No, it's not really climate change. It's geoengineering. So here we have global heating and stuff, risk of flooding, sewage spilling into homes and gardens in the UK. Wow, that's nasty. Record flooding across France. Spain, bushfires in urban industrial area in Spain. I saw this on, I think it was on X or something, somewhere earlier today. Italy's Lover's Arch. Let me see if I can pull this up here. You heard about this? I was looking for a picture. Let's see if it loads. Yeah, Lover's Arch in Italy collapsed. They're blaming it on climate change, I think. Natural rock formation perched along the turquoise Adriatic coast succumbed to the relentless forces of nature, collapsing into the sea after days of punishing storms. Oh, it's not loading. Let me try one more here. But what's crazy is it collapsed on Valentine's Day. That's what's crazy about it. Well, here, let me do this. Let's do the old poor man's version of Italy's Lover's Arch. So I'm just going to do search Google images. Here we go. So you can see it right there. This is called Lover's Arch. It's this rock here in this opening. But there it was. There it is now. And it collapsed on Valentine's Day. Isn't that weird? But yeah, they're blaming it on erosion from the water, I guess, and the rock down here. I don't know. I just thought it was odd that it collapsed on Valentine's Day. How weird. Yeah, okay. And then, let's see, back to here. Severe storm splits road. Record rainfall in Corfu. Now, that is Greece, not too far from where they're doing the Olympics, a little ways away. Let's see. Cyprus appeals to residents who cut water usage by 2 minutes a day amid the drought. Central Africa. Heat. Extraordinary heat in Africa. Looking to see what else is happening here. Hong Kong records hottest Lunar New Year's Eve on record. Wow. Record heat in Japan as well. Extreme rainfall in South Korea. So it's just total nuttiness everywhere. Massive sinkhole devours farmland in Indonesia. New Zealand hit by storms and widespread floods. An historic heat wave hits South America. So it's just never-ending, total global weather chaos. But that's exactly what they want, isn't it? The geoengineers, I mean, that's the they I'm talking about. The people that are running the show, the people above them, the people running those operations. British Museum erases Palestine from ancient exhibits after historical accuracy challenge. Well, this is on Israel 365 News, so we know which side they're coming from here. British Museum has quietly removed the term Palestine from displays covering ancient Middle Eastern civilizations. So see, they're erasing Palestine from existence so that you cannot question the narrative of Israel. You can't come back and say, no, Palestine existed. Look, here's a sign that talks about it. They're erasing the signs. So they've quietly removed the term Palestine from displays covering ancient Middle Eastern civilizations, acknowledging that the anachronistic label distorted historical reality and erased Jewish history from the region. So they're couching it in those terms. So we have to erase the word Palestine, or it will make Israel and Jewish history non-existent. I don't think that works the way they are saying it works. Anyway, enough on that, but you get the idea. Rewriting history is what that sounds like to me. And then one more here from same site. Thought this one was interesting. I didn't really read it first, so I'm not real sure what it's about, but it says activists with ties to Zohran Mamdani sparks outrage over un-Islamic dog remarks. An un-Islamic dog. I don't know any Islamic dogs. New York activist known for defending what she calls Palestinian resistance ignited fresh controversy this week, not over Israel, but over dogs. Posted on X that dogs have a place in society, but not as indoor pets, describing the practice as un-Islamic. Oh, I see. Yeah, Muslims do not like dogs as pets. I've heard that. Says, in a city with an estimated 600,000 dogs and more than 1.5 billion in annual pet-related economic activity, the comment drew immediate backlash. Yeah, I wonder if Mamdani's gonna, ban dogs or something, you suppose? It wouldn't surprise me. She later attempted to walk back the statement, writing, laughing at the Zionists frothing at the mouth at this, thinking that they're doing something. It's obviously a joke. I don't care if you have a dog. I don't care if your dog is essing everywhere and you're not cleaning it. She adds, she was clearly trying to weigh in on an issue, unaware of the current New York City discourse, where we're collectively jokingly hating on dogs. So anyway, I guess this is her here. So yeah, they don't like dogs. So I guess they're afraid of being attacked or something. I don't know. They're not halal, I'm sure. All right. Let me see what you guys are comments here. Hold on. All right. Got a few comments. Thanks you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I know we're a different night than normal, but wanted to try and squeeze in a show this week, and happy that we were able to. William says, I look for the show Sunday, and I'm glad to be here tonight. Yeah, I'm glad you are too, William. Thanks for being willing to jump in here on a different night. And to all you guys, really. Doug was traveling on Sunday. Really cool that he's doing the show tonight. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, happy to do that. And I wanted to I do this show in part, well, I do it for you guys, of course, but I do this show in part just so I feel like I'm staying up with current events and knowing what's going on in the world at that time each week. So I wasn't able to do the show because I was traveling, but yeah, Marty's got it right. To serve man for dinner. That's right. What was that? That was in Twilight Zone episode, I think, from way back when. To serve man. Yeah, it was a menu, if I remember right. They weren't the book that they were talking about in the show, and the aliens had this book, and they were wanting to serve man, but it was to serve man for dinner. It was literally a menu, if I remember right. It's hilarious because 80% of America is Spanish speaking at this point, possibly higher than that. Yeah, we're talking about the Bad Bunny halftime show, and he did all of these lyrics. All the lyrics he was singing were really risky, I should say risque. They're really bad. I mean, borderline like pornographic, pretty much. And yeah, apparently he was saying all this stuff in Spanish, and it went out over the airwaves, which is illegal to do. At least in English, it's illegal. So why is it okay to do it in Spanish? I don't know. You can't do that, or FCC will fine you or shut you down. But they didn't. Yeah, no one would be. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't. Maybe they knew that people would understand the lyrics and did it anyway. Kelly says, the world gone nuts. Exactly. Gerhard. Gerhard was here. He says, Trump's Mossad-trained ICE army will come for everyone's guns, and no one will resist. The mind control is too overpowering. I don't know. I think a lot of people will resist in this country. People aren't going to take the guns and like anyone who's doing it, whether it's Trump or anybody else. I don't think. And from what I understand too, Gerhard, Trump is really rubbing a lot of people who voted for him the wrong way. That just means people are not happy with what he's doing. And, if he goes for the guns, I don't think he will. But I think if he does, though, that would be a monumental mistake. Yeah, bioterrorism flies here, I guess. Yeah, apparently it does, at least in Las Vegas. It's okay. Well, it's okay when the Israelis do it. We know this because it was a Jewish judge releasing a Jewish person who broke the law, who had all these Israeli passports and stuff, but he was released on his own recognizance, and he could give his passport to the court so that he couldn't travel anymore. Yeah, that's all they needed, I guess. He just his trust, in his word, saying that he wasn't going to break any further laws, I guess. Yeah, thanks for posting the Subscribestar link. Really appreciate that. And the merch shop, thediamond.report. Yep. And I haven't mentioned that in a while. We're going to be shutting down the store pretty soon, just because it's fairly expensive to keep that going. And nobody's really buying anything from the store, so I don't really want to keep that going and have that just be, money that you guys are. There's a few of you who are paying, each and every month for me to do this show, and I don't want to use your money in that way. You know what I'm saying? It would be irresponsible of me to take money that you guys are paying me to do this show and to invest it in keeping the store running yet another year, and no one's ordering anything really. So that doesn't really make sense to me, so I don't think I'm going to keep that going. I think that expires in April at some point. So it'll be up until then, a couple more months. Stellar presentation as usual, so much misbehavior and the naughties just walk away. Yeah, they do. The bad guys always get away, it seems like. At least they do in this life at the moment. Good show as always. Much love and blessings to you all. And good night and God bless to William and to everyone else. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I guess we could wrap it up. I don't really have anything else. We can play another video here before we leave. I had several videos queued up here. There's a good one about Restore Britain. We'll probably watch that. Maybe one other one as well. You can tell we're a little bit early tonight. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, the trip went well. I can't really say where it was just because we're talking about, it was a college visit, and I don't really want to say where my daughter's going to be going to school in the fall. It does look like it was a successful trip from the standpoint of she'd already been there, and I was just seeing it for the first time. It was a successful trip from the standpoint of convincing me that that is the place that she really does want to go, and she wants to be there starting in the fall. So I think that's probably going to be our decision. So we did kind of come to some conclusions on that. Unfortunately, it's really expensive, but that's the way colleges are. And I wish it wasn't what it was, but I think it'll be a good match for what she wants to do. So all that to say, it was a good trip. It was quite a bit of driving, and that was kind of tiring, but we got it done and probably won't have to go back for a little while now. So that's good news. So thank you guys for continued prayers and for blessings, and also pray for blessings for you guys this week. And again, remember all the different things that I mentioned this week. Pastor Jay Strother, be good to keep him in your prayers as well. Again, he's a good man. Yes, it is a church who is, there are some things that particular church is not doing right, but you can say that about all churches, really. And this particular church, it is a really big community of people who love Jesus. They really do. Talking about Brentwood Baptist. And in the years that I went there, it was never heavily Zionist. Like, they were, I guess, pro-Israel, you could say, but not overtly, and no one ever talked about it. No pastors ever talked about Israel from the standpoint of, you have to support Israel no matter what. So I'm glad that was not the case. Most evangelical churches are not that way, and this particular one wasn't. I don't think Jay Strother, who now has this some version of stomach cancer, I don't think he ever did talk about that either. Really, he didn't. He's kind of steered away from that. So anyway, yeah, keep him in your prayers if you don't mind, and even though I'm not really going to that church anymore, I can still consider him a friend, and he's a good man. So let's see here. We've got a couple of videos that we'll play on the way out, and we'll finish with that. And I was just looking at the calendar. The next Diamond Report show will not be on Tuesday next week. It will be back on Sunday. So we'll do another show on the 22nd. Looking at the calendar here. So we'll be back on the 22nd, which will be Sunday night like usual. And no traveling. The start time will be like tonight was, 9 p.m. Central, which is 10 p.m. Eastern time. And I will see you guys then. Hope you guys have a really blessed rest of your week. Keep Jesus front and center in your lives, and continue to pray for the broadcast. Pray for me if you don't mind. And remember your friends and family, of course, in your prayers, and stay as close as you can to the Lord, because He's coming back soon. I'm convinced. And again, all these headlines, reading all these breaking news headlines, just to me proves that we are living in the end times. So anyway, love you guys, and we will do it again next week. I will talk to you then.
There appear to have been upwards of 250,000 young white girls raped in this century, very largely by Muslim men.
In 2008, an 11-year-old girl came to the attention of the police after she disclosed that she and another child had been sexually abused by a group of adult males. Just a few weeks later, she was found in a derelict house with another child and a number of adult males. Yet she was arrested, 11 years of age, she was arrested for for being drunk and disorderly, and none of the males were arrested. Has your force identified the police officers involved in that and found out what went on?
I don't know.
The veil is lifting on the UK's festering underbelly of nauseating cover-ups, where Labour MPs under Keir Starmer's iron grip just slammed the door on justice for victims of Muslim grooming gangs.
The ayes to the right were 111, the noes to the left 364, so the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock.
But Labour crushed it, 364 to 111. Back in January 2025, the Tories pushed an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing Bill demanding a national inquiry into the predatory networks that have ravaged thousands of young, mostly white and working-class British girls, while whispers of Islamophobia fears and political correctness shielded the perpetrators.
But I want to give a special thanks to the APPG on British Muslims for the brilliant work that you do to highlight issues affecting British Muslims and celebrate their achievements. As leader of the Labour Party, I am utterly committed to eradicating Islamophobia from my party and from society.
And let's not forget Starmer's own skeletons as Director of Public Prosecutions in 2009. His CPS refused to prosecute serial pedophile Jimmy Savile despite credible allegations, citing insufficient evidence. Hundreds more victims suffered while the elite protected their own.
How did you get it, though?
I can get anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can't get. And there's nothing I can't do.
We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference, a thought, a feeling, and not an act. We should differentiate between child sexual abuse and pedophilia.
The stats paint a horrifying picture of a nation in denial, with police recording 71,227 rapes in 2024 alone, yet charges brought in a pathetic 2.7% of cases, leaving over 97% of predators walking free. By the year ending in March 2025, sexual offenses spiked to 209,079, a brutal 11% jump from the prior year.
And nothing has shaped my thinking more than our crowd-funded independent inquiry into the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. An inquiry that should never have had to exist. An inquiry that I created only because the political system itself would not act. That inquiry has been the most sobering experience of my public life. Not just because of the awful crimes, not just because of the horrific suffering, but because of what it exposed about the way this country is governed.
Now zoom out to Scandinavia, where the same multicultural madness has turned safe havens into rape hotspots. Sweden tops the charts at 84.4 reported rapes per 100,000 people, followed by Norway at 42.39.9. With studies showing 92% of severe rapes in Sweden linked to foreign-born offenders. Yet convictions remain abysmally low. Just 6% in Sweden prosecute adult cases. Scandinavia's unchecked borders and elite denial breed predators, turning progressive paradises into hellscapes for women and girls, while real men appear to be non-existent. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Experiments such as the famous double-slit experiment have shown that quantum objects, electrons, atoms, and molecules exist in multiple states and places at once, known as superposition, until they interact with their environment. At that point, they acquire definite properties and conform to the behavior of classical physics. They become what we know as physical matter. These experiments showed us what Werner Heisenberg described as something standing in the middle between the idea of an event and the actual event, a strange kind of physical reality just in the middle between possibility and reality. This reflects the nature of sacrifice. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. In these experiments, it is being transformed. A heated metal filament is sacrificed for the electrons in superposition, ripe to become something new. Saker means sacred. Fakera means to make, and so sacrifice means to make sacred. Sacrifice is not destruction. It is the transformation from one order of being to another. Incense is sacrificed to become fragrance. Candle wax is sacrificed to become a flame. The seed is sacrificed to become a child. And food is sacrificed to become the body. If you compare modern-day science to ancient esoteric philosophy, they appear to be the same. Energy is conserved. It transforms, but never disappears. Spirit is eternal. It transmutes through forms. Matter converts to energy and back. The subtle and the dense are interconvertible. Bound electrons are liberated by heat. The fixed is volatilized by fire. Superposition contains all possibilities. The prima materia contains all potential. Measurement collapses to one outcome. Intention selects manifestation. Thoughts are measured from neurons firing, blood oxygenating, magnetic fields, and metabolic activity. This is all physical phenomena, and so thoughts are things. Max Planck regarded consciousness as fundamental and matter as a derivative from consciousness. And this is what has been believed for thousands of years by those in power. In Western occult traditions, there are thought forms and egregores. A thought form is a mental construct created by the focused intention of an individual. This is called a tulpa in Tibetan Buddhism. An egregore is a collective thought form created by group belief, and the egregore has its own autonomous existence. Every nation and corporation is an egregore. Fed by centuries of worship, every religious god is an egregore. Money and authority exist only because we collectively believe they do. If thoughts create reality, then whoever controls thoughts controls reality. Edward Bernays wrote that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. If you control the narrative, you control collective belief, which shapes the collective behavior and manifests material reality. The material reality then reflects back and proves that the narrative was true, which reinforces the loop. The battle for your mind is a battle for reality itself. The electron, freed from the filament, enters superposition, pure potential, awaiting manifestation. Mind is not separate from this process, and it may be the very thing that drives it. Every narrative you accept collapses infinite possibility into a single, definite reality. To know this is to know why your thoughts matter, why narratives are weapons, and why the battle for consciousness has been waged since the beginning of civilization. What modern physics measures in laboratories, the ancients practiced in temples. The mystery schools taught initiates to master their inner world before attempting to shape the outer one. The powerful use it for control, but the power to shape reality has never belonged solely to those who wield it against you. It belongs to anyone who understands and applies the law. Thoughts become things. Greg Reese reporting.